You're listening to Well, I Laughed, part 1 of Movie Magic. Shake that spear.
Welcome to our podcast.
Right into it. Nice. Okay.
Why not?
Truly.
We've been talking for like half an hour.
Yeah, hold on. It's always nice to clock the time we start. Oh, okay, cool.
Literally 8 o'clock.
So listener, top of the hour, just so you know, I'm not sick. Mom, I had really spicy sriracha noodles today, and I was on the phone with them. And you do that Midwestern thing.
On the phone with who?
My parents.
Oh.
My mom.
You just said them. I was like, who's the
And
noodle
Dad.
police?
Could you imagine?
Yeah.
I told Tyler a couple years ago there are no vegan police, and it revolutionized his world.
Yeah, I know, because he ate raw beef tartare around me and was like, it doesn't count.
It did actually start a slippery slope.
It really did.
I was the bad influence friend.
Well, I knew
but
that.
We're doing that thing where I think we're both kind of hemming and hawing. We're like not trying to be rude to this person that we love, me to them to me.
Yeah.
But it's like I'm ready to go and like you're ready to go and like we are both trying to go. But no one ever says, I'm done with this conversation. Now I'm going to leave. So instead, my mom goes, well, it sounds like you're kind of sick and I know you have to record tonight, so we'll let you go. Because they just keep doing this.
I love the we'll let you go. Once I learned that from my aunt, it was like it revolutionized phone conversations for me. It was an immediate out because they can't be like, wait, no, keep me.
There's also a really beautiful way to like stand in such a way that signifies to everyone in the room that you are ready to GTFO.
True.
That you are ready. It's a much slower kind of, and your shoulders are kind of up. And even when you're standing up, you're still kind of hunched a little bit.
And still have finishing that conversation from across the room. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
And then you go, well, give me a hug. All right. You know, like they just, and that's when I realized this entire time, my mom's been alive. Well, give me a hug. I'll catch you later. Like, it does not matter what the last line is. Girl, I've done the stand-up. I'm gone. I'm not here anymore.
Yeah, I have no notes. Absolutely no notes. So what we've learned today, Grant's not sick.
No,
so
just
we've
really
actually
spiced out.
learned nothing.
I was sick last week, but my body was like, got to get ready for spring break. And then I made a series of life choices that was like, financially, you're not doing anything for spring break.
Okay, I was going to ask
fine.
what you were doing. Great, so recording can go back to its normal schedule.
I think it'll be a hike every day, which will be so
fine.
good
That'll
and
be
annoying
good.
for the rest of you, but like really good for me.
Yeah, you're pretty well balanced on hikes. You get a lot of those inside thoughts done inside before they become outside thoughts to me.
Yeah. I wonder, like, if I lived in California, if I just wouldn't go through that rough patch during the summer, because I would still be, but I do.
No, you
be too
would.
busy.
Yeah. You still would. Don't worry about it.
Other things happening in my life right now, it is March Madness season.
Ugh.
And I think, did I tell them last week the assignment I gave the kids?
Don't act like you're not going to say it again, even if I tell you that you have.
Just to reframe it real quick.
Yeah.
Thank you. They had to come up with some kind of argument as to why a school should win the NCAA tournament known as March Madness that has nothing to do with basketball. And they could pick
That's college basketball for you non-US listeners.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And it could be from the men's tournament or the women's tournament. Like they could pick a team from either field. And then they had to present them to the class. And they have been like legitimately very funny and interesting. Like, for instance, do you understand how much the movie Shrek is based off the university Notre Dame?
Oh. I'm going to need a lot more information on that because you know who went to Notre Dame?
Who?
Maddie. You know who also loves Shrek?
Maddie.
Maddie.
Well, you should ask her how many times she visited a place on campus known as Farquaad.
I'm asking literally right now.
And apparently in every Shrek movie, the Notre Dame emblem, the Fighting Irishmen, like makes an appearance somewhere in it. And if you look at their cathedral, also known as Touchdown Jesus, because he's holding his hands up like this.
That's wild.
And then compare it to the castle from Shrek.
Shut up.
Like identical structure.
Okay, when at college, how many times when at college you visited the building called Farquaad?
I think it's actually like a space, like the Farquaad.
That's so dumb. That's incredible.
I
Also,
want
we're
you
going
guys
to a
to
wine
know,
tasting
listener.
on Friday if you want to join.
Fun. Actually, you mean this Friday?
Yeah.
Okay. That's tough.
You just don't want to come? Or
No,
like you just
I
hate
do.
me?
I do want to
or,
go.
like-
The thing I've already committed to I don't want to go to.
Excellent. It's in the area of your school, which is what I'm assuming the thing you don't want to do is near.
I'm going on a date on Friday.
They can know that. Get the fuck out of here. Anyway, the wine tasting.
Yeah, sorry. Tell me more about the wine tasting.
It starts at 4:30.
Okay.
It's a place called Proof. It's by my old place.
Okay.
Yeah, and they do a free wine tasting. It's like 4:30 to 7, and the reason we found out about it is that we were at Nocturne, the jazz club, on last Friday, and that trumpeter guy that I know, that used to play at the Brown, or still does sometimes play at the Brown Palace, he was playing with the group that night. And I messaged him on Instagram and I was like, are you playing at Nocturne tonight? Because he had been for a really long time on every Friday. And then he responded, yes, ? And then yes, ! And I was like, I'm glad you're certain. And he was like, I went to a wine tasting before and now I'm running late. And then we were talking to him after the performance, after the set ended. And he was like, yeah, I've actually done that every Friday. I go to the wine tasting and then I'm almost late to come here. I was like,
Beautiful.
Great. You're almost late coming to like one of the most notable jazz clubs in the state just because it's super chill that you're like basically on retainer as their trumpeter. So anyway, I haven't told him that we're going to go to the wine tasting, but we're just going to show up.
You're just going to show up.
Yeah, he's a fun
Hit
dude.
me with the time one more time.
4:30.
Oof.
4:30
Maybe.
to 7. I mean, you could leave early.
I could, and then show up just a little buzzed.
Yeah.
And have a great time on that date for literally no reason at all.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I trust that version of myself. A
I
little
think
buzzed, a
it'll
little
be
excited.
fun.
Friday night.
You would have a great time.
But Grant Thomas is always having a great time.
Okay, you would have a really great time and have a lot of great stories afterwards.
Listen, this is not me dismissing it. This is me seriously considering it.
I know, good.
So back to the March Madness.
Yeah. Jesus, where were we?
Okay. It's just one story real quick. So you know the framework. They have to find some reason to cheer for this team. So a student go up there. Give me a student name. Male.
Jess.
Jessie. Great. So Jessie goes up there. Also, Jessie's parent, father or mother, is an influential person in like the civic life of this city. I don't need to tell you more, just to explain kind of how wonderful what we call a link chain is that I'm about to explain to you. So Jesse goes up there and he's like, yeah, so for my presentation, I was like, who better to start with than the bald man himself? And then he clicks and it's a picture of me at my desk looking disappointed at Jesse.
Good.
And he goes, and where is Mr. Thomas from? Nebraska. And what school's in Nebraska? The University of Omaha that won the Summit League and made the national title.
Oh.
But then I was like, who wants to research about Nebraska? So do you know who the bald man also teaches? Give me another boy name.
Mark.
Mark. He also teaches Mark. And Mark, famously from Florida. And you know what else is from Florida? The Gators. Do you know who made the NCAA tournament? The Florida Gators. But who would ever want to do a presentation with the Florida Gators? So do you know who else is from Florida? Ron DeSantis.
Oh
do you know
my God.
Do you know where he is right now? He like keeps clicking and it's like DC. And do you know who made and he goes through legitimately like 12 teams that have legitimately made the tournament.
I'm impressed.
I am too.
I'm impressed.
Before he lands on New Mexico. Because it's the New Mexico like Lobos, which is the Wolves.
Okay.
Oh, how does he get there? He gets there from... Because he's like, and do you know what happened in D.C.? Someone in D.C. renamed the Gulf of Mexico the Gulf of America. And you know what's right next to the Gulf of America? Texas. And do you know what's and like he gets us back to New Mexico that way. Anyway, so his whole presentation's on why New Mexico will be winning the NCAA tournament, which is funny, and we all laugh, and then everyone leaves, and a kid kind of like slumps up to my desk at the end of it. Generic girl name now?
Jess.
Okay, so Jess, not confusing at all, is kind of like, okay, Mr. Thomas, well, thanks so much for a great day. And I'm like, Jess, what's going on? And she goes, well, like, I was so excited because we've gone through 2 days of presentations and there's like only like 5 people left. And I was in line to win most niche award because I know no one from the other classes had done my school yet. And then I go, oh no, did you pick New Mexico? And she goes, oh, yes, fucking Jesse. Like walks out. So it's been a great couple days, to be completely honest.
Off-season Grant or like in between two major tournaments Grant is a good time.
I want you to be aware that there is a chance that I'm going to win another teaching award for this activity. Because do you know who shares the classrooms around my room?
Who?
A bunch of social studies teachers with a slight gambling problem.
Oh my God.
Who, when they found out I had found a legitimate way to incorporate March Madness, like they already respected me because I replaced the guy who came before who was not good at all. But now I think they're like legitimately kind of jealous, I think, of what.
Good.
Yeah, because we're going to watch the games the next couple of days. I mean, obviously there's like presentations to do too, but like there's a prize if you chose the team that wins. And there's a prize for team that's most niche. So
when does March Madness technically end? It doesn't end for a while,
if
right?
you let it live in your heart,
Forever.
March Madness is forever.
Get fucked.
I think it's mid-April.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that isn't actually just March.
Well, I think I mean, I hate to say it, but like, I think like Easter impacts it and stuff like that. Like when conference tournaments happen, they need to end before you can do the big tournament. And so it like changes, but it always starts in March. And the madness usually comes in the first two rounds.
At the beginning,
when you're like, oh my God, a number 13 team beat a number 3 seed. Oh my God, we all knew Texas A&M was overrated. Oh my God. Right. And like, that's the fun part. Right.
Yeah.
And then you get to like week 3 and there's like, your like low seed is a number 7 team. And you're like, ugh, boring. And I say all the stuff in my class while standing next to a poster of like Fanny Bryce and Funny Girl, and it just completely throws off the children in my world.
I mean, you say that all sitting next to me while I'm like petting my dog.
You're very fratty today. Like top to bottom, you're very fratty today.
Thank you. I actually changed out of my work outfit into this.
Well, you have
It's a sweatshirt and leggings, guys. I don't know what he's talking. Oh, the chain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, the chain.
I forgot that I was wearing it.
The gold chain, not necklace. Chain. It looks good on you.
It's a double chain.
This is not a criticism. Hear that loudly and clearly. Not a criticism.
That explains why you're laughing about it and telling it to our listeners.
Well, it's an observation, and this is mostly an audio platform.
I truly forgot I was wearing it. I took off my earrings because I can't wear them with the headphones anymore. And
so you what, like looped them around your neck or?
No, I just didn't take off all my jewelry like I normally do.
No, you look good. You look good, girl.
Thank you.
Yeah,
today I went and had my annual physical. If you're listening and you can't remember the last time you had your annual physical, I'm telling you now to book your annual physical. It is not as bad. It's not like the dentist because the dentist is actually horrible. And the eye doctor, it feels like a lot, you know? But your annual physical, they like look in your ear and look in your eye and like, I don't know, if you're a girl, make sure you don't have breast cancer. And then they were like, anyway, you good? Do you need blood work? No? Okay, bye. And that's it.
Speaking to a somewhat similar, but just now slightly older crowd, I got my first physical literally the last day of my 20s. The day before I turned 30, I fulfilled an oath I had made 5 years earlier to go to the doctor before I turned 30.
What was your physical before that? Do you remember?
Yeah, it would have been
in college or before?
Summer before my freshman year of college when the university made you get a physical.
That's shocking.
Yeah. And then after that first year, when you have a rapport with your doctor, the next year you can go towards the end of it. I'd like to talk to my doctor about prep.
Once you get that rapport going, it's really good. I had the same PCP primary care for like 7 years or something, all through college and then into like adulthood. And then she got pregnant and decided to like not work in the office. She only did like
English
virtual.
Teacher curse.
I know. It's so real. She only did virtual. And when she left, it was so funny. She like handed me a business card. She was like, so I won't be here like for your next appointment. And of course, I think all of the doctors that work in this office are great doctors to follow up. But because I've been seeing her for so long, she like passed, as she's saying this, she passes me a business card that has a couple names circled. I ended up stayed in network, with that like suite of doctors, but like moved to a different office. So I didn't end up seeing anyone, but I was like, you are so real for this.
So real, so deeply relatable. I get it. It's like kids come to me. This is my first year at this school. So none of these names are in reference to real people.
Okay.
But I've the decade in public education. Yeah. Oh, you want to take AP Lang? Who's your? I just think there's a lot of classes you can take during that time slot. Or you want to take AP Lang? Who's your? Yeah, you'll get a lot out of that class.
I love loved figuring out when teachers did and didn't like each other. That was clutch.
I was having a conversation with one of my co-teachers about a senior we might put up for a scholarship.
Ooh.
And I was like, well, I mean, I think we should do, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. And then a junior looked at me and my co-teacher and goes, I just want you to know, I know exactly who you just said. And I go, and I want you to know that you decided you were part of an adult conversation you were never invited to, and that what you just did was actually kind of rude.
Maia, cut this. Who were they? I missed that. Yeah, that makes sense.
Maia, we're back.
No, it's probably all going to stay. That's hilarious.
Okay.
No, that makes...
No, those names will be heard and then they'll be destroyed. That whole story might need to get cut. They
Fair
keep
enough.
referencing parts of the podcast. I keep waiting for them to get tired of me. And instead they are becoming avid listeners. Do you know what that's going to do?
To remember who... Sorry, I just totally interrupted your train of thought.
It's okay.
It's going to make it impossible to edit.
I kind of keep waiting for them to get sick of us. And instead, I'm accidentally growing our like under 18 demographic in
Which
a way.
Which actually is really small.
In a way I don't want to do, though. No, here's the thing. I trust they're listening and not filling out surveys because I do assign them homework. So I understand what their completion rate is. But it's like, what is it going to do to our advertising algorithm if that becomes like a prominent part of our listener?
Listen, one of the softwares I use to measure metrics, that now that I'm doing all this fucking market research.
She's honestly killing it.
Y'all, if anyone has any contacts in podcasting that wants to like help, because we have one listener, her name is Aileen, shout out, incredible. We're both like learning kind of as we go. And I had an incident about a couple hours ago, which truly shattered my soul a little bit. And I just need some advice. Anyway, did that sound too desperate?
No, it sounded really good and healthy, and I'm not going to mention at all the like walk through the desert search I went on for wine as a result of that conversation.
To be fair, I asked for wine before that happened.
You did.
Yeah.
You did. But then the urge became greater.
I actually, yeah.
Okay.
That's all I'm going to say. Anyway, what I was going to say, the software that I use to measure metrics, if you go to like our podcast page on that software, there's a place where you can click on like advertisements and it'll show you what ads they've hosted on their podcast. And it's really useful when you're trying to look for like ad agencies and stuff. The only one listed on our page right now is Dragon Ball Z.
Hell yeah.
Or at least like as of a couple weeks ago.
Hell yes.
Honestly, I was like, I'm not mad about that.
And you're welcome.
Given that we have no host read ads, like that should be what people see.
It just really does feel like it kind of cut across. That was one of the first text messages I've gotten from my brother in a couple weeks. We're good. We're just like both busy adults.
They're also brothers.
Yeah. So like, you know, we only text when we see some like truly offensive TikTok that can only be shared in the depths of our family. I'm also a little wine drunk because I don't have to work tomorrow.
Hell yeah. So I went to my PCP appointment. Mm-hmm. And then I came back and I was telling Casey like earlier this morning, I was like, I don't know if I'm like due for a pap smear and like all of that, all of the nonsense that comes with that. If you're a girl, you sometimes they like cut out a piece of your cervix and then you never actually know when they're going to do it until they're like, and you're going to feel a little pinch. And then you're like, holy fucking shit.
Yeah. It's a really good thing. Over 90% of our listener base does not identify as cis male.
Yeah, it's true.
I am shocked right now.
I was telling Casey about that. I was like, I don't remember if I'm due for that this year because I think it's every other year or something, or every 3 years or something like that. And and so ultimately I had to get like a basic checkup, but I didn't have any of that happen, and so it was fine. But I came home and Casey was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm okay." Like it would. I mean, it's a doctor's appointment, and I had to get my blood drawn, so that wasn't fun. And you know, the rest of it was pretty mean. He was like, "Well, anyway, I got you a little surprise for being so brave," and I was like, "A surprise?
Is it Chuck E. Cheese?"
Better. I had already asked him to run to the Japanese market in Denver,
nice,
to get some stuff, and because he works in the area, and while he was there, he got me a little tub of salmon roe, like ikura. And just heated up a little bowl of warm rice and then put the ikura. Oh my God. I was like, I don't deserve you.
Casey will dress super well. Like he'll be really well dressed. And Maia will be like, are you ready to go? Like the Uber's here. And then he'll make you a little like goopy mayo and like broccoli. And you're going to be like, what is love? Baby, don't hurt me.
He could. It's acts of service, baby. I'm really easy to please. Acts of service and gifts.
Specifically when you want to be served.
Yeah. Otherwise,
not just
do
random.
not look at me.
Otherwise, how dare you emotionally blackmail my friend Maia
in the zoo? Yeah. Speaking of emotional blackmail, I have some choice words for some people in the industry.
Okay, I was like, in the friend group? I thought we were all's good on the Western Front right now. We're having brunch tomorrow.
Yeah, it'll be so nice.
It is. Sorry, listeners, real quick. There's like kind of a weird thing. Support local educators. That's what I'm going to tell you. But tomorrow is a Thursday, and I don't work as like part of that. And also kind of the first day of March Madness. So
coincidentally,
like truly coincidentally, I do think our union leader is going to be like at the Capitol or something. I'm going to be sat on a couch watching and napping and like reading a little bit of fiction. And then
as is your right.
Cheese fries and chicken wings kind of situation. Yeah, I know, right?
Where are we getting cheese fries?
I actually kind of forgot where I was going with this story because that's what I was going to say. Because I'm so excited for cheese fries. We'll talk.
Okay, yeah, good.
We'll scheme.
Excellent.
Yeah, I can, if you need me to, I can send you a calendar invite from my official work email to your official work email if you need to make it look like you're busy. And I know from experience, the story that started this whole thing was that because I don't have to work tomorrow and some of our friends can work from home at least part of the day, we're doing a big friend brunch tomorrow to watch some of the first games. Really looking forward to it. There's some really exciting things planned. I talked to Liddy about the menu before I walked over here.
Excited.
Yeah. Because you're a fan of potatoes.
Yes.
Yeah, you're going to be really excited about tomorrow.
Excellent. Are there mashed variety?
Do you want me to spoil the surprise for you?
I'm not Lydia.
Okay. We are buying the frozen hash brown patties that you would get at McDonald's and just going to cook a whole sheet of those.
If you ever saw me in college with one of those from McDonald's, that is the single way to know that I was hungover.
In college, when I would get them from McDonald's, they'd be too greasy. Anyways, I'm super excited about that little brunch moment. But
it's going to be good.
In explaining to the students why I wasn't going to be there tomorrow. And they were like,
so funny.
They're still supportive. They're like, absolutely. They all come up to me. They're like, Mister, are you going to be here tomorrow or are you going to be away? Right? Like it's clear.
They know what's going on.
Right. They're tuned in, especially the debate kids. They're like, they're like organized, whatever. I was like, no, I'll be gone. And they go, that's so fun. Good for you. What are you going to do? And I was like, me and just like 8 of my closest friends are going to have a brunch at 11 a.m. on a Thursday at someone's home. And they just oftentimes are so inquisitive and
I love them so much.
And then befuddled by the life that we all live with each other. Because like, I forget what tournament it was. I think it was one of the traveling tournaments where I just go, like Lydia and I had a sleepover last night so that way it was easier to get to school today.
Obviously.
And they were like, what?
I remember that.
Like, and I just like, every single time I tell them something about my life, there was like, and I'm just like, joy is an option. When you get older, like you can just have fun.
To be fair, I don't know that our friend group is technically normal.
No, I'm not joking.
I do think we are a lot more open with each other than most friend groups.
We're a lot more open with each other. We're and in a way that can take varnish off paint honest with each other in a way that I think we all value, but scares the living daylights out of new people.
Out of anyone that shows up otherwise. Yeah. That's why there's not that many straight men.
Right. Because you see us engage in like honest, candid conversations about our emotions and expect you to at least be able to like hear us, process it, and then come back to us on your own schedule.
Not be like, ha, gay.
Right.
Like some friends of friends that I know. Which we do say,
girl,
but
I could kick you.
Different
with more agency to it.
Yeah, we're like, you are gay.
So anyways, that feels like a really good place. I think I'm getting ready to start the story.
Okay.
I don't think this needs to be a disclaimer. I'm just going to say for the last couple of weeks, we've been recording on Mondays. So I've been opting for like a little ginger tea. I don't need to have any ginger tea tonight. And so, I'm just kind of full of life, full of color right now.
This is the first time I think he's drank alcohol on this podcast in a number of months.
In a while, yes.
Which has been fine. I've been enjoying my other recreational activities.
And I love that for you. And then I've been going home and getting a decent night's sleep and then not being a terror to people the next day, which is a commitment I made for myself, for others.
I'm proud of you.
Thank you.
That's really
There's
really
others who
mature.
Are just grateful that I'm getting almost 7 hours.
I got like 5 hours of sleep last night and I wanted to take a nap when I got home and then I got that fucking email and then I didn't take a nap. So here we are. Obviously,
lot of
that's gonna
tone
be
changes
cut.
in that story.
Obviously, that's going to be cut.
Okay. I think I'm going to launch into the story if you feel ready.
I'm here. I'm sad.
Okay. You're sad. I love saying that. I really do. Is this the one? Yes. Yes, it is. We're going to have to change that title, but it's fine. Okay.
I'm concerned.
Okay. So I'm going to start off today's episode. Top of the hour, starting off today's episode with like a joke that I saw on TikTok a couple weeks ago. But it's like joke in story form. You know how I am. I forget who
This is so weird.
I forget who the TikTok creator was. It was not
Brennan Lee Mulligan.
So don't worry. But it was someone. So I'm trying to say this is not an original joke, but I saw it, thought it was funny. And then the next day on the walk, I was like, oh, that's how I should start off this story.
I love those moments,
yes,
right?
But at that point, it's now too late to go back and try to credit them. Okay.
Yeah,
okay. So we're ready for this?
Yeah.
This joke? Okay. So there's this goose, right? And this goose just got out of like a really long-term relationship and she's afraid to go back onto the market. Nice.
Yeah.
She's afraid to go back on the market, but all of her friends are like, put yourself out there. Like you have so much to offer. Like it's giving Mother Goose. Like you got this.
It's
like you should
Mother
go.
Goose.
And she's like, well, I'm a little nervous. And they're like, no, you're going to love it. We know this horse and he's wonderful. And I know you don't feel like you have a lot in common, but you have a lot in common. And like, you should just like, you should do it. You should go out on this date. Right. And the goose is like, well, I mean, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know if I've like fully healed. I don't know if healing happens like after a long-term relationship where you just kind of live with like the new version of yourself. But I also think part of this is like being brave with your life and like brave with your choices and like not standing on the sidelines. And it's like not about the outcome, but it's about the input. And so like, yeah, you know what? Yeah, like I am going to go on this date. Go ahead, set it up. I'll go on the date with horse. Okay. So like a couple of days later, she shows up at the restaurant and she's like, hey,
I just
sorry.
know it's going to be a horrible pun.
A little drunk. You can't look at me like that. And she goes, hey, table for two. This is the host now. So she's talking to the host. Goose is talking to host. And she's like, hey, like table for two. I think the reservation's under horse. And they're like, oh yeah, you're the first one to show up. Here, we'll show you to your table. And so she like gets to her table and she's trying to do that thing that you do on first dates where you're like trying not to look nervous. So you want to look at your phone. But if you look at your phone, you're afraid you're going to look disinterested. And like, if you're looking at their phone, then maybe they're going to walk up to the table and then like, boom, they're right there.
Oh, and
but
terrifying.
Then, right. And that's bad. But like, what if you see them from across the room and like that's really awkward. And so Goose is like kind of working through all of this stuff and she's like, God, like I don't know if I was ready for this or not. And then, you know, horse enters and like horse makes an entrance because it's like a horse,
it's a
right?
Horse.
And so they like kind of see each other from across the table and it was like they're both kind of like nervous and like at like that last moment, like Goose realizes horse is nervous too because when horse gets to the table, horse says, hey.
That was literally the dumbest joke I have ever wasted time on.
No, I want you to know. I want you to know that I know. I want you to know that in the moment that I decided to start off the story this way, I knew I was
thought it would
in
be
a
a bad
park.
pun, but it
So much
exceeded
worse.
expectations.
When you said it, I was like, she's not ready. She thinks she is.
I did.
And she's not.
I wasn't.
And so that's why like it wasn't obvious to me at first that I should start off today's story like that. But when I was on a little walk catching some sunshine, catching some gamma rays just on my skin, which should not do.
Yeah, I hope you don't catch gamma rays.
Right here, right on my face.
There's a whole movie, I think it's called The Incredible Hulk, about that.
Oh, is it bad? Is it like kryptonite?
What?
I don't.
You're mixing universes. You've messed somebody up in the audience.
Don't watch Marvel movies, so I don't
Well,
know.
kryptonite is DC, so.
The nation's capital? So anyways.
Tell your fucking story.
Based off of that story, do you have any guess as to what the topic for tonight's
Doesn't
story?
look like I have any. It's either
It doesn't,
goose,
no.
horse, or hay, or gay.
No, okay. I mean, I never said horse was a man. I just said horse, right? Genderless story. Horses can be doctors, Maia.
I just
There's a
pictured
horse
BoJack Horseman
loose in the hospital.
and everyone's like, because there's a horse loose in a hospital, and then they're interviewing a guy on the television who's seen a bird in an airport. And it's like, get the fuck out of here with that. Everyone's seen a bird in the airport. This is a horse loose in a hospital.
These are quotes from a John Mulaney special like 5 specials ago. And for
The
those
new
of
kid is
you
in town or something.
who skipped to the start of the story,
So sorry.
and this is what you have to listen to, I am sorry. But today's theme is rom-coms. We're going to look at rom-coms and like their power and their potency and like the origin. Today's episode
I
on
was
movie
researching my
magic
story.
is about rom-coms.
I was
Go ahead.
researching my story, and do you remember when I asked you for one word?
Yes.
And you said romance?
Yes.
I got farther into my story like this week, and I was like, oh no. Are Grant and I doing this every time? It's
literally
not.
never, because when you ask me that question, I'm doing like the most unhinged topics I am doing. Like the last,
Yeah, fair. The last time
Sorry.
I asked you that was the
was
cheese
cheese.
caves.
And you were like, does it have anything to do with soccer or Seattle? And I was like, no.
Yeah.
And you were like, I don't know how, but okay.
Yeah.
And I was like, she's so off base for what my story is.
Pigeonholed myself so much that all of my algorithms, I Google buried or cave, and I only get Seattle Underground
Honestly,
and the Thai cave.
Your questions threw me off because I
Good.
was so deep into the inner workings of the American dairy industry. I was like, how does soccer relate to that? That doesn't make any sense to me. Seattle has nothing to do with government cheese.
That's what you think.
That's what you think.
And that's what they want you to think. You saw that clip from the Cheesecake Factory in Seattle during the George Floyd protests. Thank you. I was waiting for you to recognize it.
Does Denver this is not the story. That's
Okay.
a Patreon comment. Does Denver have the same vibe as a Cheesecake Factory?
16th Street Mall does.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Okay, so today we're talking about rom-coms, and I've
Okay.
done some actual research, and we're gonna, it's already open. I thought this was a text message, and I was like, whoa, someone's angry at me.
Yeah.
It's my own story. Okay.
Someone do some like therapist analysis on what just happened.
Grant has anxiety. Boom, done. Figured it out. Sip time.
Say it in a mirror. It's never once said that.
I said it on a podcast. Like I know that is my mirror. Rom-coms. Okay. When do you think we get the first rom-com?
Good question.
It was the one I started this whole process on, so I'm glad you think it's a good question.
40s?
Okay. You're off by just about 2,250 years.
Great. So in the future.
Yeah, 100%. We
Cool.
have yet to
Yeah.
see the first true rom-com.
Yeah.
Okay, so to
I'll
actually
let you know when it happens. Grant.
So, to talk about like what the first true rom-com was is like essentially an impossible task
Yeah.
because like
It's not just movies.
No, it's not just movies. It's plays, it's books,
yeah,
it's
okay.
stories. It's what you're telling your friends as you like talk about your night when you're out hunting or gathering or like building like a shelter, right? Like stories of romance and how awkward and uncomfortable and thus hilarious they are a universal feature of the human experience. And so I'm going to talk about some relatively Eurocentric examples of like the history of rom-com, and then we'll bring it obviously to a discussion of like American rom-coms and culture, things like that. But I want to say like at the top of the show, romantic comedies have existed forever because to try to like woo someone requires you to be vulnerable
Yeah.
and be a little not yourself.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just ripe for embarrassment.
Are we at some point going to talk about our favorite romantic comedies?
We can talk about it now, then, and later. Like we can talk about it whenever you want.
What is one of your favorite romantic comedies?
Oh, so you want chapter 5
Yeah.
right now? Gotcha. It's a long list.
I'm just looking for one because this is going to be a recurring bit throughout.
Okay, My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
And something I've said to you multiple
Yeah,
times.
that's super true. Every time I'm asked this question, I can't remember, but right now all I can think about is The Proposal.
With
Sandra Bullock
and Ryan Reynolds. That's
in
crazy because we
Alaska?
are going to talk about the proposal later on
Hell
in this
yeah!
episode. Yeah.
Perfect.
Listen, that's
Incredible.
a good one. You just picked a really good one.
I know I did.
Okay, so all of these rom-coms that we know today, obviously it's a trope, right? It's a trope that we see in rom-coms. It's a trope that we see in fiction a lot of times, right? They call rom-coms a really trope-dependent genre.
Yeah.
Second, maybe only to horror movies in terms of like the tropes it regularly returns to. But why do rom-coms keep returning to these tropes? Well, it's because these tropes have been successful, and they've been successful for hundreds of years, starting at least with Shakespeare, who many consider to be the father of most of our modern day rom-coms. And so this, because some of you asked for more citations in story,
Yeah.
I'm trying, comes from the Folger, F-O-L-G-E-R, Folger Shakespeare Library. The romantic comedy traces its origins to the Shakespearean tradition of the same name. The traditional rom-com structure originated in his work, The Merchant of Venice, where 3 separate relationship plot lines formed the central plot. For my English girlies out there, for my book girlies out there, for those of you who never once missed the opportunity to read your way to a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut, you're going to love this episode.
Is that what your reward was?
Yeah, a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut.
Ours was like a ticket to Bandamere Speedway. I was like, look in the mirror. Does it look like I'm going to Bandamere? I won that ticket every time, though. I'll tell you that. Did I go? No.
Our Pizza Hut was in between a Long John Silver's and a tattoo parlor and across the street from train tracks that led to a grain silo.
Cool.
In many ways, our own Bandolier Speedway. Little motorized racetrack here in Denver.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so 3 separate relationship plot lines formed the central plot, but the storylines were still influenced with theatrical comedy, such as female love interests disguised as men and subsequently revealed to be the objects of desire.
Hell yeah.
If this sounds familiar, if suddenly you've begun reading or hearing this in a low-pitched voice a la Amanda Bynes in She's the Man, 2006. Tampons are great if you have nosebleeds. It is because...
Just look at the mirror. What is that quote? She is ugly. I don't remember what goes right before that.
You mean the first time any movie ever took my breath away, and it's because the male love interest in She's the Man is a shirtless Channing Tatum.
Oh my
who's
God.
always in soccer outfits. Like, yeah. Mama, I was turned gay. I don't know what else to tell you. And it was She's the Man.
Yeah.
And no, it wasn't the drag. It was the shirtless man involved.
No, that's super fair, honestly.
Definitely a little wine drunk.
What? No. Keep
Okay,
drinking,
so
baby.
you have Amanda Bynes' She's the Man from 2006, which is a lot like The Merchant of Venice. It is because the fabric of these Shakespearean plays have been ingrained in many, many things that we now know and love today. For instance, and I know you're going to know the answer to this one, but the movie 10 Things I Hate About You is, of course, an adaptation of Shakespeare's play, The Taming of the Shrew.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where a woman refuses to get married, pridefully single. A man believes he can woo her, who comes in from out of town. And despite her knowledge and wit and best intentions, actually finds this person up to the challenge and loves him. But she hates him. And in the process, literally invents the enemies to lovers trope that you read about every month.
Is that for real? Is that
It's
real?
like what I mean, obviously.
The Taming of the Shrew is the first enemies to lovers trope that we have on record.
Well, I mean, like obviously, almost all of Shakespeare's stuff was inspired by stuff he read, and then was like lost to history. But yeah, like that is perhaps one of the best known enemies to lovers tropes that we then see repeated over and over again. For who loved a trope more than Shakespeare? As many have pointed out, he established the familiar beats of today's romantic comedies 400 years ago in such comedies such as Much to Do About Nothing and Twelfth Night.
Much ado about nothing.
I was actually in Much Ado About Nothing.
You said much to do about nothing.
Well, you know, when there's not much ado, there's plenty to do.
Plenty to do. Okay. Whatever.
Do you know what's even dumber? I was in a community production of Much Ado About Nothing when I was in 8th grade.
And you still said much to do about nothing?
No, I wasn't given any speaking parts. Probably because I didn't understand a single word in the entire play.
I have big musical news. That's going to apply to like 2% of our girlies.
Talk to me about the Gatsby musicals.
What's the one other musical I won't shut up about?
Oh, Mary? That's what I need you talking about. I guess that's a stage play.
Try again.
Hadestown.
Thank you. The original, or at least the Eurydice and the Orpheus that are on the original Broadway cast recording, you know the plot of that Greek tragedy, right?
Yes, of Persephone.
No, of Eurydice and Orpheus. Orpheus goes to hell to save Eurydice, and then Hades is like, okay, you can walk her out.
Persephone is the one he drags down. That's the pomegranate seeds.
Yes.
Yeah.
This
okay,
one is, your Orpheus has to lead her out of hell, but he can't look back to make sure that he's there. And then at the very last second, he does. And so she goes back down to hell. And it's like a tragedy. Anyway, those two just got engaged. And so people are... Oh my God, I'm so deeply unwell because they never got to like officially like have a happy ever after on stage. And now there's pictures of them engaged on the London Bridge. Ugh, dead. Anyway.
No, I love this in part
so
because every time you go see that play, especially someone like you, you fall for the same kind of human trap that Shakespeare employed in Romeo and Juliet, where he tells you at the top of the show, it's not going to work out for them. And then you get sucked into the world and you end up rooting for them. Maybe you even forget that it's not going to work. And then as their plans start to collapse and you remember what you were told, you hope against hope, which is maybe even more powerful than hope and then despair.
Hadestown is coming to Denver.
Yeah, I'll go whenever you want.
Thank you.
I have plenty of sick leave.
I
was going to bank it for my retirement, but I mean, who knows if that's guaranteed.
We're also, Maddie and I want to go to Moulin Rouge when it's here in July. Excellent.
Hit me with the ticket price before I say yes.
It was pretty cheap when she last looked, but I'll let you know.
I need it to be 2 digits, not 3.
It's 2 digits.
Okay, and
sure.
I need prices right. I would love for that digit, not the first one, not to be bigger than a 6.
I think it was maybe 6.
Okay.
Yeah, and that was for like a better ticket.
I don't know why I'm choosing to be so extravagant with my description about this, but it's okay.
No, I love it. It normalizes budget for the rest of them.
Sure, but I could have been like, I don't want to spend more than $60. Can you get it? Like, I
when you do that to me, I'm just like, I'll do whatever, and then I'll face the consequences later.
We'll sit in the mezzanine.
Yeah.
Okay, so back to the show.
Jesus.
It's okay. So Taming of the Shrew infamously then becomes 10 Things I Hate About You and a whole bunch of other stuff because it helps originate an enemies to lover plot line, which we love. And then for who loved a trope more than Shakespeare, many of the beats of today's romantic comedies were helped set by him over 400 years ago. Here's where I left off. Mistaken identities or disguised identities, relationships plagued by scandal, star-crossed lovers, and squabbling turned loving partners are recognizable in dozens of modern romantic comedies, from Bringing Up Baby to While You Were Sleeping to Notting Hill. And that's not even counting the teenage rom-coms from the late 90s and early 2000s that successfully turned these things like Twelfth Night into Who's the Man in 2006.
Oh, wow.
But add the holiday element.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly a larger range of recognizably Shakespearean motifs becomes apparent. The number one aspect of any respectable Christmas movie is the big city gal, and then finish the rest, Maya.
And
what happens with the big city gal? And does she stay in the big city?
No.
Where does she go?
She comes back to the small town.
Right. And then what does she do?
And then she meets up with the small town boy who's like, it's not all about numbers and getting aligned and having your ducks in a row and circling back.
Right.
It's about enjoying the season. And then they like work together. And maybe, if this is the right trope, sometimes it doesn't do this. They save the local bakery.
Right. So then my last question for you before you hit the full nail on the head. Either last scene or second to last scene, when they confess and resolve, what's the setting for that scene usually?
A big public event.
Big public event. Big, public. Almost like a play within a play.
Shut the fuck up. Boo.
Here's what the Folger Theater had to say.
All right, fair enough.
become a parent. Big city gal who returns to her small town roots and discovers, quote, what's really important, usually in the form of like a really handsome, rugged man.
Yeah. I wish it were like that IRL. It's
you
never
have
like
a
that.
rugged man.
Okay, but IRL, the situation goes, big city gal returns home, and then small town boy who had big dreams and then tore his ACL or some shit and therefore couldn't go pro, quote unquote, then tells them that, oh my God, I always had a crush on you. And then later is like, hey, send nudes. And that's the end of that interaction.
What a really interesting heteronormative experience. Because there was two experiences for me. Big city gal returns home still drinking sugar in his alcoholic beverages.
Oh.
Gets on one of the apps, goes, oh, cool, he finally came out. Try to coordinate something. We're both staying in our parents' bedrooms or like our childhood homes or whatever. Not able to, but leave feeling sexy. Couple years later, you're back home, no longer able to drink sugar in your drinks because you're back in the Midwest where everything has sugar. Right.
Happened, yes.
Now that person has come out and has an apartment on his own, but you're now increasingly really realizing you don't know how many Christmases you have left like this, and it feels weird to leave
your
family time just to have an anonymous hookup with a person you once had 11th grade algebra with or whatever. I wasn't good at math.
Yeah, I was gonna say that's late for algebra.
Yeah. Yes, it is.
11th grade, I was in AB Calc.
Congrats.
Eat my dust.
Here's the thing. I took my last class pre-calc junior year and then didn't need any more math credits until I took a math class, pass, no pass, fall semester senior year of college where I would show up in my student teacher outfit, sit front row, just absolutely locked in, looking like a State Farm sales representative before I drove to my student teaching job, because first semester it's only half day, second semester is when it comes full day. I continue. So big city gal returns home, finds a very handsome man, and through escaping the troubles and responsibilities of urban life, because she's fled to a more rural and bucolic setting, this backdrop is what Hallmark has built its industry off of, and what Shakespeare built many of his comedies off of. For instance, A Midsummer's Night Dream happens as they escape the city into the woods. As You Like It and The Two Gentlemen of Verona, as well as his romance Cymbeline, in which Imogen must travel in disguise to the wilds of Wales, all happen when the main characters escape the city and enter the unknown, somewhat mystic, purer, rural setting. But don't look Shakespeare's history play, Henry IV, Part 1, in which the future King Henry V also runs away from the burdens of his royal duties into the figurative woods of Eastcheap, as well as the literal woods of Gad's Hill.
No, I don't trust this. Isn't this the one that Junius Brutus played? Or was in?
No, that was King Richard.
Right.
Yeah. So Shakespeare establishes a couple things. He establishes enemies to lovers. He establishes lovers who it can't happen, right? Like Romeo and Juliet, or several others where like social class gets in the way or something like that. Yeah, don't hit me with that right now. I'm wine drunk. I can't think of The World and All That It Holds by Alexander Heeman. 11 out of 10 stars. I can't think about that right now. And I think about it all the time.
Yeah, fair enough.
Another prominent feature of our favorite Christmas movies, which also doubles right now as like some of the most common rom-coms that happen, but that can still trace its roots back to Shakespeare, is the story's climax happening at a huge public event, such as a contest or a festival or performance.
And now that's what Queer Eye's whole structure is based on.
It really is. Shakespeare's whole structure is just a Shakespearean play done in 45 minutes. All the parts are played by men.
Some in dresses, some not.
Exactly. Not required for the story, but certainly fun to have.
Yes.
So all of the like big climaxes happen in these huge public events, such as a contest or festival. And all of this echoes Shakespeare's play within a play devices that he loved so much, like in Hamlet, like in Love's Labour's Lost and The Tempest. In the Hallmark movie Jingle Bell, Belle.
Get out.
Where, also, I want you to know Jingle Bell, top 10 grossing Hallmark movie they have ever made.
Why? What? Huh?
Well, let me read you the description, and
Okay.
you tell me that
Can
your
we
heart
watch it?
hasn't been captured. Duh.
Can that be a holiday edition where we just watch Hallmark?
It's just going to become part of our like Patreon series. We're going
Yeah.
to set it up like Katya and Trixie do, where it's just them on the couch and then a small box in the corner. You can see what we're watching.
I've already done that
It's
once.
just-
We can do it again. That's fine.
Lily and I were doing it today as I wrapped up this story, and she was watching The Bachelor. I was like, so you're telling me his name's Grant and he's boring? Literally don't believe it, but that's fine.
God, you're so intolerable.
Yes, especially when I'm wine drunk. You forget who I am like this.
I don't know why my algorithm has been showing me more like astrology content.
And I think we all know why, but that's okay.
It's all just like, I just love how spot on they are about Tauruses. Where
They always are.
now that I like work with one on the day to
You
day,
can say love, it's fine.
okay. There's like one about apologizing. They were like, I've never said that once ever, and I was like, yeah, there is no apology that will ever happen. At one point, I was like, should I be more mad that there wasn't a No, they can't. They don't know how. Yeah, that's as good as I'm gonna get.
Yep.
That offer of snack.
The day that... Yeah.
Yeah.
What you think is actually parental trauma is actually just my astrology sign.
Yeah.
The day that I chose, listener newsflash, I'm under contract to buy a home, and I'm very excited. And it
Oh, so
came
we're
down to 2. Yeah,
Less
we-
superstitious than we
told
were
pa-
2 days ago.
yes.
Okay.
A lot of the
now
numbers
that
fell into
everything
place the
happened.
last 2
Okay.
weeks. Yeah,
Fair
last 2 days. It's been a crazy 48 hours. I felt like Samantha Jones in Sex and the City. Like just,
Same, but in a very different way.
I think there's only 2 ways, and I'm really interested in which one you're claiming. Anyways,
The opposite.
It came down to 2 homes, and I was really between 2 of them. The location was incredible in one, but like the home just hadn't captured my heart, and the home in the second place captured my heart, even if I wasn't as thrilled with the
Right,
location.
right.
But it felt like more like location neutral as opposed to location negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so I chose that one, and it's not the one that Lydia
Or
Maia had
That's
really
safe to say.
wanted
Every
me to
time you weren't around, I want you to know we were scheming.
Oh, I know. Lydia's not good at hiding her phone when she's texting.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways, by the end of that day, because I'm living on Jacob and Lydia's,
Yeah.
Lydia had gone from being opposed to the decision I had made to so enthused about it. She wasn't sure if she didn't also want to own a townhome.
Are you? Oh my
Yes.
God,
At
Lydia!
one point, I go, other friends would just say, sorry, I was wrong. But I understand I'm not going to get that from you.
Oh, you're not going to get that from me ever, actually. I'm pretty sure I was always right.
Mm.
And then also, I want you to know, I texted our little group chat of like, what do you think about the house? At the same time, or maybe slightly before I texted Lydia, I was like, so what's Grant thinking about the house? And I think she responded slightly before you did. She was like, well, you'll see the answer in the group chat, but actually now I really see the value in like this and that. So like, you traitor. You left me out of a cheers. You left me out of a bouquet. And now you're on his side with a townhouse?
Well, I caught her right
Whatever.
before and after we were about to take naps. And so,
I napped at the wrong time, I fear. I napped after the decision or while the decision was being
I think
made.
we
I waited
all
too late.
know I had made the decision by the diner.
Yeah, I know. You
Yeah.
just didn't want to tell us because
Well,
we were
I wanted
all...
to make sure it was right, but I don't know if there's any of this good content, but it's just kind of one of those episodes. I think where we're like, it's me honest, it's you honest, it's a silly little subject.
I've told you I'm not coming to a party at your house unless there's Rage Cage.
And I've told you that's why I got a garage.
I want you to know that that's not just true for your housewarming. That's true for all parties.
There are certain...
Even if it's just us.
Oh, that's what we're going to talk about is my party theme on Patreon.
Okay,
Because I'm actually really
perfect.
excited about that. I
Me
ran
too.
it by...
I started looking at wigs.
Good. Okay, so
Back to the story.
in the movie Jingle Bell,
Oh,
that
right,
was
yes.
at least 5
Which is
minutes.
the top grossing Hallmark movie. Okay.
So in Jingle Bell, a songwriter named Belle must return to her hometown to compose music for the town's annual Christmas pageant, culminating in a reconnection with her ex-boyfriend and a musical climax. Plays in Shakespeare's time almost always ended in some kind of dance, and performances at Shakespeare's Globe Theatre in London still today
We walked
end
past
in a
it.
jig performed by the actors. We did walk past it.
Yeah.
Stories that end in a musical or comedy performance are almost always foolproof. And if you don't embrace the cheese of a children's choir singing Christmas carols at the end of a Hallmark movie like Love Actually or About a Boy or Shakespeare's rude mechanical performings in, I meant to Google this word and I never got to it, Pyramus and Thisbe at the end of A Midsummer's Night Dream, you're made of sterner stuff than the rest of us, which is because it's the Folger's Shakespearean libraries. It's basically their way of saying like, children singing is cute. Like the sad little videos that make you cry on TikTok have sad audios playing like for a reason. Like it triggers your emotions.
Something about seeing the visual along with the audio makes it cringy though. You know, like I love a good movie soundtrack.
Did you ever watch the Hallmark movie based loosely off of Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce?
No, but you did tell me all
titled
about it.
Something like A Touchdown for Christmas or whatever.
You told me about it.
They confess love for each other on center field.
Get out.
Yeah.
In the middle of the game?
Halftime.
Yep.
And
Classic.
everyone in the stadium then also gets a magical hat, which none of them had noticed underneath their chairs until that exact moment. And it was huge
Hallmark
public
is
displays.
so wild with like defying the laws of like, I don't know, being in reality. It's just like there's magic just at the right moment.
Here's the thing.
It's a plot device. It's all a plot device. Be creative, Hallmark
I don't
writers.
think it would have been hard to rent out a football stadium. I think the Chiefs would have given theirs for free since it was obviously about them.
Yeah.
It was so clearly like green screened on like a green turf. It was almost hard to watch. And by that way, I mean incredible to watch.
Yeah. I mean, there's value in that.
We are only on part one of what is like truthfully and legitimately at least a 4-part episode.
Oh, no.
We're only 20 minutes in, though, if that also, like, after the yapping was true.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So, of course, the central hallmark of, sorry, I'm just realizing I was afraid the story was going to be short. Now I'm like, okay, I got to move the story
now
along.
you know how I was with the Christmas episode.
Of course, the central hallmark of any self-respecting romantic comedy is a comic misunderstanding between potential lovers who exchange witty banter with an affection that's clear to everyone except the two characters. Our friend Beep, when he's trying to tell us that he's not in love with
Beep, yep.
but like we all know
We're all like, oh, honey.
oh yeah, like that's a legitimate concern. No, it's not.
No, it's absolutely not. What do you need to hear from me to get back with Beep?
Well, I think that concern's legitimate, and I think if you just wait it out 2 more months, you'll have more perspective.
Or an entirely different opinion
Correct.
because of some random ass event that happened. Yes.
Okay.
It's Tyler. We're talking about Tyler.
And we love him so much. Okay. So up next, I broke my rule and I went to ChatGPT and I asked ChatGPT to write descriptions of 2 plays that Shakespeare wrote as if they were upcoming summer blockbuster movies.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Here's
All
the
right.
first one. I'm going to read it to you.
Okay.
And I want you to tell me if you can
I'm not
guess.
going to be able to unless they're like like very well-known Shakespearean
In this
plays.
lively town of Messina, Italy, love, deception, and witty banter collide in this classic Shakespeare romantic comedy. When the dashing Prince Don Pedro and his men Claudio, Benedict, and Don Juan return victorious from war, they are welcomed into a home of the kindly governor Leonato. There, young Claudio falls madly in love with Hero, Leonardo's gentle daughter, and a grand wedding is soon planned. Meanwhile, the sharp-tongued Beatrice and cynical Benedict, who have long enjoyed trading insults, are secretly tricked by their friends into believing they are in love with each other. Their battle of wits turns into an unexpected romance this summer in Shakespeare's
Girl, I don't know.
Much Ado About Nothing.
I recognize the character names.
Correct.
That's the hard thing.
I know, but also Sydney Sweeney's movie Anyone But You.
Incredible. Yeah, Glenn Powell.
She has a hookup with Glenn Powell on the first night.
Glenn Powell was actually the only thing I know about
Right,
that
as
movie.
you should.
Yeah.
Okay, so they have a hookup the first night,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They then have a miscommunication where they both think the other ghosted each other, right? But her sister and his lesbian best friend get married and invite a very small group to their wedding in Australia.
Right. Okay.
Where they realize everyone's trying to get them to reconnect. And so they're like, it'll be easier if we just pretend we're reconnecting, because then they'll stop locking us into closets and just let us like move about.
Here's the thing is that sometimes I wish I could try that on Grant with like someone I think he should be with. But because he's a fucking Taurus, he would just actually hate it. Like
Also, I have to kind of remember to like disengage my attack mode. I'm kind of mean sometimes. I know that.
What?
I know that. I've never turned it against you guys except when you deserved it. Sometimes it just makes everyone else laugh.
okay, so
And so the horse says, hey.
sometimes I'm mean, but you don't worry. Again, classic Taurus, but it's because you deserved it.
Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go
Or
ahead
if
and...
you didn't deserve it, other people thought it was funny.
No, Bluetooth. Skip to the scene right before where she tells me I refuse to be loved. Let's go ahead and get to that part of the conversation.
What I wanted to say is that you would not like to be forced into a relationship like that unless you had already picked that person.
Kind of feels like we're making much ado about nothing.
If you're not on the YouTube, you literally just need to see what Grant did. It was the most dad-ass, wannabe funny comedian thing
You can
I've
laugh.
ever seen in my life.
You can laugh.
I
I
am
am
not.
laughing.
No, you're not.
And that's the difference between the two of us.
Neither of us were laughing when you said that.
Okay, here's your second and final movie.
I'm going to get it wrong, too, so don't worry about it.
Probably.
Yeah. Jesus.
Sorry. Anyways, as soon as I found out Anyone But You, starring Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, was Much Ado About Nothing, I was like obsessed with it all over again.
Fair enough.
It's a great movie. 10 out of 10
Yeah.
recommend. In the puzzling city of Padua, Italy, wealthy nobleman Battista Minola has a dilemma. His fiery, sharp-tongued eldest daughter, Caterina, refuses to marry, while his sweet, mild-mannered younger daughter, Bianca, has suitors lined up. However, Baptista has decreed that no one may marry Bianca until Caterina is wed. Do you have an idea so far?
I feel like I should.
Correct.
I'm trying to think about it.
You definitely should.
I know. Once you say the name, it's going to actually make me so mad.
Enter Patrico, a brash and confident fortune seeker who arrives in town
Oh, I'm
looking...
a fortune seeker! Fuck!
Eventually, you will realize that this is just a review of previous material we have covered in class. I'm a teacher by trade. I'm going to keep reading this for you listeners as you yell at Maia about the play I mentioned like 15 minutes
This plot
ago.
was in Jane Eyre.
Seeing an opportunity, Bianca's frustrated suitors convince this new person to pursue Caterina, promising him a handsome reward if he succeeds. So in other words, handsome man doesn't actually care about her, but like there's a prize if he does it.
Yeah, I know.
So
It's gonna drive
he
me...
vows to, quote, tame Caterina.
The Taming of the Shrew!
There we go. I was like, I could
you.
use a different word here, but I'm not trying to embarrass
Thank
her.
you. I mean, you could. It would have been fine. I've been embarrassed many times. Remember that one time I mixed up prokaryotes and eukaryotes? Because I do, and I will never not think
What
about it.
I remember is the people who gently messaged us afterwards.
Oh, they were all very kind. They're all very aware of my many mental health disorders. It's still embarrassing.
Also extra fun because that sets the trope that you love, which we call...
Science? What?
So close, partial credit. Enemies to lovers.
Oh, enemies to lovers.
I'm still talking about
I do
my
love-
episode. I don't know what you're talking
I didn't
about.
know what you were talking about at all. You just asked me a question and
I
we're like,
was
huh?
really concerned that this was going to be our first sub 1 hour episode in a long time. This is episode 100. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I had to write all of the things on the file description when I started the recording.
Good. So let's transition to part 2. But of course, Shakespeare wasn't the first. While his catalog lives on and is influential because of how well known it is, it does not exist because he was the sole inventor of the genre. To understand who invented the genre, we need to go back even further to the ancient Greeks.
Okay.
The
Greek tragedies, and
yes.
then also comedies.
Here's the thing. We're about to talk about this. This is what chapter 2 is for this episode. The Greeks, I just don't know if like not enough theater had happened before or what, but like every Greek play, even the funny ones, are like wild dystopian novels.
Yeah.
There are 3 types, for those who need just a little bit of a refresher. There are 3 types of Greek plays during what we would consider like ancient Greece. There is dramas, right? And in dramas, you're going to see things like the play Medea, right? Woman takes revenge on, and also the inspiration for Tyler Perry's Medea later, like a woman justified in her rage but misunderstood. But that's a separate story. That's I tell this story about how when I was in college, I had to go to a play. And so I went to our small Lutheran Nebraska Wesleyan's production of Medea. And I was shocked that they had enough black students to pull off a Tyler Perry movie. And when the curtain rose and they were all in togas, I was like, boy, have I not been paying attention whenever I've seen clips of Tyler Perry's Medea's House of Pain.
Yeah.
And by the time we got to intermission, I go, I think there's more than one Medea.
This is not the one that I know.
And what a fun surprise, basically pre-internet. Also, I'm just too dumb to Google it.
I mean,
anyways,
same.
So there's dramas.
Yes.
There's satires, right? Which are oftentimes even worse than dramas in terms of like their tragedy.
Oh.
And then there's comedies, but they called them like
they're
new
also
comedies.
Tragedies.
Yeah, the drama tragedy is like kind of the same.
Okay,
it's like drama tragedy.
I was like, I literally
satire.
just talked about Orpheus and Eurydice. You
Correct.
can't just.
So drama tragedy, satire,
Okay.
and then comedy.
Yes.
And then comedy actually.
It's an old song. It's a
Sure.
sad song.
What are you referencing, babes?
Hadestown.
Okay, because I know it's not Taming of the Shrew.
No, it sure isn't.
So, the satires made like poignant political points. The dramas taught valuable life lessons.
Yeah.
The comedies were only funny because the characters themselves were like pushed to the extreme versions of like people they might recognize.
Yeah.
And so the comedies require a lot of context, which is why
To understand why they're funny.
correct.
Yes.
Which is why Greek comedies have not lived on in the same way.
So
Greek
if I'm getting this right, Grant is like, so Shakespeare created rom-coms. Psych. Actually, it was the Greeks, but also still psych.
Well, okay. So like, for instance, one classic Greek comedy. You're going to get a kick out of this one, right? Okay. So there's this guy, mistress, right? Not married because like he's cool. Anyways, she gets pregnant. Mention of child loss plus 30 seconds now.
Give him a couple seconds before you say it. That's what I've learned.
Okay. He's like, get rid of it. She's like, okay, secretly doesn't want to. Meanwhile, his best friend has his own secret mistress, and she's also pregnant, also told to get rid of it. First girl loses baby. First girl sees second baby trying to get rid of. She goes, I'll take that baby. Nursing baby. First man sees baby, sees that it looks like his bestie and is like, you
cheated on me.
You woman who is not my wife cheated on me with my best friend. Second woman, she's drifted to the backdrop already, right?
She's gone.
There's this huge like a hullabaloo happened. First girl ends up into the home of the second man because he's like, you go live there, whatever. Anyways, it's a story about male reconciliation.
You know the most unbelievable part of that story?
The male reconciliation?
No, that the first man recognized that the baby looked like his friend.
So true. In a second one, now this is actually kind of funny.
Yeah.
In a second one, all the women of an island stop having sex with men.
I think about that all the time, and I want you to know, if you're on liberal woman TikTok, that does actually get brought up a lot.
Do you think that's where the lesbian rumors come from?
Yeah, no.
Hold on.
Wait a second.
So, like I say, Greek comedies require a lot of context to like kind of get through all of them. Like the fact that 2 babies are born, but again, that's not even the like heart of the play.
Yeah.
And it's not even considered like a tragedy anyways.
Wild.
So we're talking about ancient Greece.
Yeah.
And we're specifically talking about a man named Menander. At least
that's not a real name.
That's how I'm pronouncing it. It's so Greek, it's his only name. It's not Menander Diaesis or like Menander III or even Menander of Athens. It's just Menander. Menander.
I don't know any other way to pronounce that.
Menander, right? Okay, so here's what I think so incredibly funny. I'm going to read to you essentially the first paragraph of Menander's Wikipedia page.
Oh my.
Okay. The Greek playwright Menander was born to wealthy parents in Athens in the year 342 BCE, before the birth of Christ, before current era. His plays were distinct from other Greek plays structures at the time because they were neither tragedies or satires. He wrote 108 comedies and took the prize at the Linnea Festival, essentially the Golden Globes, 8 times. His record at the City Dionysia Festival, essentially the Oscars, is unknown. Almost 2,500 years later, he still can't get over him being snubbed at the award ceremony.
Fair enough. Honestly, Wicked for me, this year. Quite honestly.
No, I understand.
Cynthia Erivo deserved it.
What's going to frustrate you even more is that when Wicked premiered on Broadway, it didn't win the Tonys it deserved.
I know, because
it lost to Avenue Q.
Yeah. Avenue Q is an insane musical.
Correct. What's also insane is my diehard love for March Madness and knowing who Wicked lost to at like the 1992 Tony Awards.
And that's why we like you. Because if it was just one or the other, you would not have the friend group that you have right now.
It's why you can hang out in my townhome if things really kind of turn the direction we're all afraid it's going to turn here pretty soon. It's okay, I'm near a train. Does
that make it better or worse?
Menanders.
Yes, Menander.
Romantic comedies have inspired modern rom-coms, often through their influence on Roman playwrights like Plautus and Terence. So, like, for instance, the musical and film A Funny Thing Happened on the Way to the Forum was inspired by Roman adaptations of Menander's work.
Okay.
This Broadway musical follows, again, tropes we've heard before, mistaken identities, love triangles, and slapstick humor. Also, Menander is kind of credited with helping, at least in the Western literary tradition, introducing the trope boy meets girl. Many of the romantic comedies that we know, like again, fourth reference of the day, 10 Things I Hate About You, echo Menander's formula of, again, a mistaken identity, societal obstacles or like disapproval, and witty banter. And this is just where I mentioned too, right before we shift to a more modern lens of American relationship with rom-coms, we're going to talk about the American rom-com history, and that'll be really fun here in a second. I just want to point out that
section 3 and 4?
Correct.
Oh, fuck yeah.
No, we're making up time.
Excellent. I was watching the clock and I was like, oh no.
You're like, oh my God. Sometimes I'll see
my ADHD doesn't do well with 3-hour episodes.
Sometimes I'll watch you do this and I just realize we're at like the top 10% of your iPad. And I'm like, even if all the links are at the bottom, we have so much. And while I'm loving every second, I am concerned. I will live here.
I'm actually making it my goal. Okay, listener, hold me to this. Actually, please don't. I don't like accountability. My episode for you guys next week, I'm actually intentionally trying to make, I'll say it now, under 2 hours.
Fascinating.
if you like the long episodes, don't get upset because my part 1 of identity theft, I'm intentionally trying to make around 3 hours.
Okay, that's really good for me to know personally in my life.
Well, I don't actually want to tell you what I'm aiming for because I don't want you to have expectations because I thought the Christmas episode would be short and it was 3 hours. So
I have been misled before.
Yeah, I know.
And it's okay. I love you all the same.
And I'm working out that kink in my note-taking abilities.
Anyways, this is a paragraph that I actually wrote and I'm kind of proud of. So I'm going to say this real quick.
Okay, yeah.
Obviously, these stories are European focused and centered, and I apologize for that. Cultures around the world have these tropes and have these stories. To fall in love.
Have you ever watched a K-drama, like a Korean
good,
drama?
I finished one sentence.
Yeah.
That was really good.
Now you know how it feels. Korean dramas are really good at this. It's mostly like
The
rich
tropes
man,
and stuff. Yeah.
rich and poor. But
Oh, look at you and getting to the end of chapter 3 there already. I know, stunning.
Gross. Don't look at me like that.
Grant, why won't you open yourself up to love? I literally wink once. Don't do that to me ever again.
I don't know who you think I am. I'm not going to lie to you.
I don't know who you think I am. When did we start lying to each other?
We never have, and that's the problem.
That wildly evil cackle you and I just both did together. Excellent. Okay, back to it. These stories at European focus cultures around the world have this trope of stories. To fall in love is so incredibly vulnerable and all-consuming that the awkwardness and embarrassment that comes along with it is universally recognized across all languages and cultures as both incredibly hilarious and deeply relatable.
Yeah.
So, but modern day rom-coms, the ones we know and love, the ones that oftentimes got called chick flicks or worse.
Yeah.
What about those? And this comes from the magazine The Observer. Shakespearean romantic comedy structure reappeared in the 20th century with silent films in 1924, with films like Sherlock Jr. and Girl Shy. These films helped set the precedent of modern day romantic comedies and would be translated to the silver screen. They would be infused with warmth, wit, and sweetness, and also so hard to have chemistry in a movie where you literally cannot talk. So like, wow.
Yeah. True. It's all physical comedy, baby.
It really is. Warmth, wit, and sweetness that would shape the genre into the beloved mainstay it grew to be. This growth, however, did not come without, the adolescent meandering that appears in any good coming-of-age story.
Grant would know a lot about that. He watches it every day.
Oh, God, the deep earnestness.
Yeah.
I looked at a child the other day. Sorry, this has not been a focus episode. I don't think we strived for it to be.
It's kind of an anthology.
I'm really kind of enjoying this so far, though. I'm not going to lie.
I think it is the wine saying that specifically,
Yes.
but you need to drink wine when I tell my story since you'll be on spring break, and then we'll have a really good time.
I can rise to that challenge.
Yeah,
I had a child at my desk today who's in a relationship for the first time. I don't know if it's the first time they're in a relationship or the first time they've actually really cared about the relationship they're in.
I need a lot of information. Hetero or like underclassmen, overclassmen, upperclassmen?
Obviously, for FERPA purposes, I won't be revealing that information. So this unnamed child of unknown
sexuality and
gender grade, name comes to me and they're like, I'm just kind of crashing out because I don't know if I'm doing this correctly or not. Like,
Girl,
it's
no one
so
does.
hard to know that. Right. But how do you translate that to a 14-year-old?
That's why I'm not a teacher.
Here's what I said.
Because I have said to your students, girl, I don't know.
I said, kiddo, first of all, like, let's be real. This relationship's not going to last. You're 14. You're here to enjoy each other's company for like right now in this moment and to like grow as people. And you guys like each other, which is why you've agreed to call this a relationship. And you should remember that when you want to talk to them about things that you are concerned about. Like, am I expressing affection and appreciation to you in a way that you understand and things like that? And second, you think it's supposed to be coming to you naturally. It never comes to anyone naturally. You learn how to do it. But also, kiddo, you like are very public about your neurospicy identity and you refer to yourself as neurospicy, that means it's going to be even less obvious to you than it will feel like it is to others.
And also less obvious to your partner,
right.
too.
But like the cure-all to all of this, regardless of if you were neurospicy or not, aka on the autism spectrum, for those of you who don't know the slang,
neurodivergent,
is just to like talk to this person about what you're experiencing, what you are hoping to communicate, and if that is coming across clearly. And if that feels too hard of a thing to do, respect, recognize, understand, and also that you're not ready for this relationship, which isn't like a moral failing for you, but just like a sign of where you're at. You also don't know advanced trigonometry right now, right? Like there are just things you don't know yet, and that's okay.
Sometimes I forget how young these children are. Like sometimes I talk to them and they're just so well informed that I'm like, you are one of us. You're an adult. You're an adult.
I can intricately explain to you the economic underpinnings of the South African economy.
And then are also like, I'm failing calculus. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
Well, I haven't done any of the reading for the last month because I'm pretty charismatic, so I can usually get away with that.
Like, they're so emotionally intelligent and dumb at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
It's so funny.
Back to this story that I keep remembering is like in my hand.
In your phone.
Hopefully it's not boring. Hopefully we just have a lot to say about
cut it.
Okay.
I'll let you know if I think it's boring. But we've never released anything that I think has been boring.
Okay. So the silent film era ends and then the talking era begins. And this period, you get to see the meanderings that happen in the 30s and 40s, where the genre really comes into itself with the addition of sound from the actors themselves. Finally, writers could fill their movies with verbal wit to match what you would read on the page, right? In Shakespeare's stage plays, in Jane Austen's novels. The wit of the film was most commonly written for the female character. She was almost always the protagonist of such screwball comedies. Just like Shakespearean tradition and the silent film's sweetness, this female-centric approach to storytelling was stitched into the fabric of the romantic comedy. And that's actually a really interesting angle for us to like kind of circle around and cement as we move into the second part of this episode, the like
Can I tell
modern
you my
era.
theory on that too?
Yes, absolutely. Because I've pulled a couple things, but it's like romantic comedies as a movie have been essentially like poo-pooed or disapproved of or delegitimized because they oftentimes feature charismatic women, and charismatic women in modern America are dangerous.
Right.
And they are tailored towards women, and to tailor towards women is to be unserious as a product.
Right.
And because romantic comedies then form the structure of what we oftentimes perceive as like the world of fiction that has actually driven quote unquote serious male authors out of the world of fiction writing entirely, because the majority of fiction readers are women, because men don't read fiction, or so they've been told. They listen to Joe Rogan, but they don't read fiction. What were you going to say?
In doing my market research, Joe Rogan does get like 60 plus million anyway.
Crazy crossover.
Sorry. My theory on why women have like historically been the like witty character in these kinds of rom-coms is actually from a conversation that I had with my cousin, the cousin that does Revival Hub LA, who has like a film major. So we were talking over our like cousin's trip, and I don't remember who said it, but someone was like, I feel like there's no new storylines anymore. I feel like they're all based off of tropes. And he was actually like, well, yeah, because that's how storytelling happens, because humans like the predictability, but they also like the unpredictability. So you need to figure out how to weave that in a way that's like easily digestible, but still interesting enough that will resonate with them.
We know what's going to happen, but I don't know how it's going to happen.
And I think having women be the outspoken, funny character, especially back in like Shakespearean times, was something that was the trope, but was just different enough or unexpected enough to like keep audiences drawn in. And I think that's leading into what we see today, where it's more like the woman is the one in power and the man is the one that's not in power, i.e. the proposal.
Right.
So we went from somewhere where like the man's in power, the woman is the one that just has like funny dialogue, to almost the opposite, because we're looking for something that's like unique, but still the same trope.
I would even add further to that, and we're going to circle back to some of the stuff that you said too. Like I have a little bit of research pulled on that.
Yeah.
There is a reason why no one ever watches live streams of marathons, but American Ninja Warrior has been re-upped for its like 25th season. And that is, it's because it's far more interesting to watch a character move through obstacles than it is just to move through. Yes. Yeah. And so female characters who are a bit more vulnerable than they might otherwise be, or characters who are tough but then choose to be vulnerable, end up maneuvering through arenas that present obstacles, whether it's gendered expectations around how men are supposed to behave or societal expectations on what women are or are not allowed to do. The very nature of there being this like ominous third-party obstacle that's not named, but the character has to like lean into, creates a heroine without a villain. And so she becomes this like person that like rises above her station or like defies expectations. And then the second person that shares airtime with her, instead of being the villain like you would normally see in a story, like the Three Little Pigs, just for example, instead gets to be this love interest because he ends up loving her for her defiance of the obstacles, which puts him with her and like on the in group and naturally makes him more interesting because by defying obstacles, she's naturally more interesting. And that's such a really, I know, right? And that's such an interesting way to move through fiction. And we devalue romantic comedies as quote unquote chick flicks when they really are exploring the nature of fictional worlds and universes.
Similar with devaluing gossip.
Yes.
And it actually plays a really big role. That's really cool. I love that.
Thank you for giving me enough airtime to swallow that glass of wine.
You're
I appreciate
welcome.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, so with the advent of being able to talk, you get this whole other layer of storytelling that was, for romantic comedies, very easy to do on the stage and on the page, but was hard to do on the silver screen until you were able to talk. And as soon as you're able to talk, then like these aspects of women's personalities come out more, right? But you still have this like element of slapstick humor that's universal that was really cemented during the silent era. So from the 1950s to the 1970s saw the most radical changes to the genre of romantic comedy. And it really started to come into its own. And one of the things that helped do that, the slapstick humor still exists, right? The like, oh, I just spilled coffee on you. Oh, I just tripped. The accidentally naked in public trope. These are slapstick comedy bits, right? Or like a person's changing and like the tent blows away. And now the person that they like could see them naked, but they're so embarrassed. Like these are elements.
Oh God, I have hives.
Right, I know. But you could reference a half dozen moments of that exactly.
Yes.
That still exists in our rom-com movies today, especially, but the actual rom-com movies that we really love today started to come together in the 1950s to the 1970s when Americans became a lot cooler very quickly about public acknowledgement about one thing. Do you want to take a guess as to what that one thing is?
PDA.
Sex. Yeah. Once characters were allowed to be sexual, to pursue sex and not romance, but like pursue sex as something they might like, to find power in sex, which is of course part of this like cultural revolution America goes through during that time period. Yeah. As soon as that happens, rom-coms become a lot more exciting.
Yeah.
Because you have this element where you can achieve A without having to seek B, right? Which then adds like motives and what you want and like perceptions but also like moral readings on these people, and you're getting all of this like backstory as to their values and the way they move through the world filled in the backdrop with their relationship to this one specific thing.
Yeah, I also think a lot of that comes from the like lack of security around how women present too, because like in the British era, like God forbid you like hold hands, right? And then all of the marriages could, especially if you were higher class, were motivated by like class structure and like monetary gain and like business and all of that stuff. And now that PDA is not only allowed, but like kind of seen as like something cool to do, all of those kind of societal expectations, not all, but like a lot of them do fade into the background, right? And so you're allowed to see characters for who they are and not what they can gain other people.
Well, also, so yes. But it also then like revolutionizes the relationship between the viewer and why the viewer is watching the movie. Because what I think eventually Hollywood realized was people were going to these romantic comedy movies because they personally would have sex with the leads, right? But
what?
Until you're able to...
I wouldn't have sex with both Glenn Powell and Sydney Sweeney.
Girl, I want you to look me in my full eyes. Same.
Yeah.
And I rarely say that.
That's wild for you to say.
Well, I assume I have to go through one to get to the other, much like a Pokemon badge.
Fair enough.
And I'm willing.
Which one's first?
Don't ask me these questions.
No, I need to know.
You know the answer.
Sydney Sweeney's first.
Right.
To get to Glenn Powell.
There we go.
There it is. Yeah.
But
Fair enough.
Because if you look at the movies from like the 1940s, the 1950s, right? Like Casablanca is kind of this famous example of like deeply romantic and like sexless, right? And there's these like monologues about like, you get on that plane, and you'll see oftentimes people romanticize those movies, and they're not wrong. Like those movies are structurally more romantic. There are these powerful monologues of people putting it all on the line, and it does say something about the human experience because they have to say something about the human experience. That's their only tool, right? And so in some ways, those like older rom-coms echo what Shakespeare was delivering, right?
Yeah.
Like what you were seeing. I mean, it's not like a perfect example, but like what you see in like Casablanca and these other like, you know, lovely monologue driven rom-coms is what Shakespeare's doing like in Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
Romeo, Romeo, wherefore art thou, Romeo? You know, in Romeo's lines, she is the East. I'm absolutely befuddling these lines right now because of
I was going to let you continue going and then make fun of you afterwards.
Thank you. But like you get these beautiful to be or not to be. That is the question. You get these beautifully like monologue driven like speeches. And once we're allowed to talk publicly about sex, we're able to stop pretending we're there for the art. But in doing so, create kind of much like the modernist art movement or the contemporary art movement, something that speaks just maybe a bit more plainly to the human condition, right?
Yeah.
You see a transition from these like black and white rom-coms of like women who are on the verge of being destitute or like men who are redeemed by the qualities of a good woman. And you instead enter what like can affectionately be kind of called like the Matthew McConaughey, Julia Roberts era of movies, right? Where it's like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days or My Best Friend's Wedding.
I want that yellow dress.
Yes.
I want that yellow dress.
Absolutely you do.
Yeah.
It's like this kind of iconic moment where to be confident in yourself means to be confident in what you choose to do in your private moments with others. And so when rom-coms are able to start talking about sex, they become a lot more relatable for like the individual as opposed to a reflection of society as a whole. I'm feeling unsure about who I am, and to get undressed in front of another person is hard and like scary and vulnerable. And if my tent just blows
away while I'm changing, that's a wild experience that previously I wouldn't even be able to talk about.
Exactly. And like there's just this kind of classic unbeatable, obvious metaphor of a person whose guard is up taking their clothes off, being like the symbol of like, I'm still tough, but I'm willing to be soft in front of you. That everyone relates to.
That's my favorite trope.
Listen, I want you to know it's everyone's favorite trope. We've made 100 actresses a career over that specifically. And no one's ever thinking when they're watching 10 Things I Hate About You. And who's the actress that plays, I recognize her name when I see it. Because it's Matthew McConaughey and it's... I'm just going to Google it.
Yeah, please do. Actually, if we don't say it, it's going to drive me crazy. How to Lose a Guy? Or okay. Or 10 Things I Hate About You.
No, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days is what I mean. The 10
Neither
is
of them
reversed.
I can't remember. I can't remember who's in.
Kate Hudson.
Kate Hudson. Yeah, that's fair.
How about Catherine Hahn's in it too?
Wait, what?
Yeah, Catherine Hahn's in How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Okay, so like when you watch How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days and she has Matthew McConaughey over and she's singing You're So Vain and she's pretending it's about him but also not about him, and you know that she's being this like funny exterior version of herself, but you can see through her. And Matthew McConaughey's character, because of circumstance, is like trying to see through her, and because he needs to see through her, he actually see her. No, he's like, oh no, he can't at that point.
Yeah,
in the
he
movie.
can't.
You're right.
Yeah.
It's like all of these are so relatable about our own individual anxieties that was able to actually be talked about when rom-coms were able to actually talk about what we're trying to do when we go on dates and on romances and things like that. Which is why, like, I'm not like justifying the oftentimes like pejorative, dehumanizing language you hear around like a water cooler.
Yeah.
But there is a reason why like the girls and the gays gather, why the bros have their time, and they like recap what happened the night before.
Which I truly want to hear more from you straight men. I truly want to hear more in a way that doesn't make me hate you.
Yeah.
You know? You got to be good about it.
Yeah.
But I do want to hear more.
If I had $1 for every time Lydia texted me, so how did last night end? I would have bought this home a couple years earlier.
Lydia's just really curious.
But she asks the right questions.
Yeah, because she asks a lot of them.
Correct.
And then eventually she gets around to it. Yeah.
So I'm going to read what I wrote, but I'm going to read it relatively fast to make sure I don't forget anything.
Okay.
But, okay. These romantic comedies enter a sexual realm during the sexual awakening, the sexual liberation movement at the time that begins in the late 1950s with the beatniks, but continues through the hippie era and into the 1970s.
The beatniks?
Beatniks. They were the OG hippies, but 1950s.
Okay.
I can tell you more, but I'm electing not to for the sake of brevity.
I appreciate that. Google it. It's probably on Wikipedia. I don't know.
Beatnix.
Yeah.
The sex comedy sashayed as the new rom-com subgenre. Films like The Battle of the Sexes, 1960, and Lover Come Back in 1961 were imbued with a sort of sexual tension derived from pitying the man and woman against pitting, not pitying.
I was
that
like,
derived
what?
from pitting man and woman against one another. Later on in this era, the sex comedy transformed from one of sensuality to one of frankness, with films like Harold and Maude in 1971 that featured candid and existential conversations. And it's around this time that we actually get the word rom-com.
Really?
According to a brief Google search, rom-com was officially added to the Oxford English Dictionary in 1961.
A real word?
Rom-com's a real word.
Is it hyphened or just?
No, ROMCOM. Also, what's crazy? All lowercase. I was.
This is why I lose crossword puzzles and also the spelling bee on the New York Times Games website.
Because I started off with it being one word, but capitalizing the R and the C, which is never right.
I thought it was hyphenated.
No, it's rom-com, all lowercase, all one word.
Whoa.
And it's been that way for almost 50 years, probably
Longer
more.
than I've been alive.
Longer than 50 years.
The whole point.
It emerges in the dictionary, recognized officially
Wow.
in 1971.
Wow.
When considering traditional ideas of what a romantic comedy entails, we probably conjure up the classics from the 1980s and 90s. Films like 16 Candles in 1984, Sleepless in Seattle in 1993 are both staples of the genre, but not for their timelessness, because they're problematic in other ways.
Yeah, I mean,
one of them makes some pretty racist comedy, and the other has a pretty outdated meet cute. But their commitment to what makes romantic comedies universally likable stays true. Their appeal to our desire to feel desired.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Specifically, almost. I'm sorry if I'm about to ruin someone's commute. I'm about to ruin someone's commute to work. But the reason why rom-coms actually work so well in like an American cultural understanding of things is because almost all of us are walking around feeling deeply undesirable, deeply unsexy, and completely ignored. And rom-coms identify that as a universally held belief and introduced the perfect person who not only sees you, but appreciates the part of you that you think makes you invisible.
Yeah.
The like tough to love, too focused on her career, too obsessed with love that got away, right? Like all these features that make these characters feel unlovable are universal emotions held by everyone. And then they prove that that's not the reason you can't be loved, but is the reason the right person will love you forever.
And if you don't believe Grant, I challenge you to start reading worse romance novels. Just start really getting into the apps, you know, that just have like the shittiest novel written by like some 13-year-old in a basement, like screen lighting their face. The worst novels that you read that you still like find yourself flipping to the next chapter.
Right.
And even though there's so many grammar errors, there's so many plot holes, think about the reason that you're still reading it. Because it's what Grant just said.
Right.
Like it's the one thing that you feel like the main character is finding someone that's finding them lovable.
Right.
You know?
How many times have you read a book where like of the two love interests, one of them is like too quiet, too short, not strong enough, curly hair, gorgeous blue eyes, like whatever it is, right? And then they're like, they find someone who's like, I love your intentionality. I love how like when you speak, like you've really thought about it. I wish you trusted me more, that you could like speak candidly. I want to hear everything that you have to say. And it's like, it's not that there's a fault, but I think you're holding yourself back and I want all of you. And you tell me you're not up until 3 a.m. reading that book. And then are absolute terror to high school children the next day because their body's not supposed to function on 3 hours of sleep.
And I just want to like slight serious note for like 2 seconds.
I promised them it was a funny episode.
It is a pretty funny episode.
I started with that horse joke. 10 out of 10.
Okay, 10 out of 10 if you say so.
Can't laugh and pour wine, so please go on.
And think for a second about tokenization. Because there are people, speaking as an Asian American, there are people in your life who think that some of the traits that make them unlovable, some people fetishize, right? And there's a reason that those fetishes aren't flattering for the subjects of those fetishes, right? Because you don't find me attractive because of the thing that I think I'm unlovable for, because I don't meet the Eurocentric beauty standard, because I don't fit in with the kinds of foods that you guys eat. You don't think I'm lovable because of that. You think I'm lovable because of some other societal norm that you think I adhere to, like anime or hentai or fucking whatever.
You're quiet, you're obedient.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like there's a reason that those are problematic, and that just...
Sorry. I just connected the dot of assuming anyone would ever find you quiet or obedient, and just like kind of got a chuckle.
If you think I'm quiet and obedient, the thing is that I'm not telling you that I don't like you.
Right.
That's actually what's happening.
There is... God, I promised you that this was going to be a funny episode.
It is a funny
but
episode.
like my side of this coin, not that it's different coins or at opposite points of view or anything, but it's like also, gosh, and I'm sorry, friends, loving you shouldn't be a secret. And like liking you shouldn't make them feel weird.
Yeah.
And if you're with someone who loves you in private, but has never introduced you to one of their friends, no matter how hot they are, and I have been there, it's not going to turn out well.
Because even if they love you for the thing that you think makes you unlovable, they're not proud of it.
Right. They might love you with their whole person, but their whole person hasn't met them yet. Like they haven't gotten there yet. And that's a tough thing to learn after the fact.
Yeah.
And it's a really easy thing to ignore during, but it's going to like rear its really ugly head at one point and leave you questioning everything as you hike up a sand dune in the middle of June one day, cooking like a potato
in the midst of
in an
mental
oven.
health crisis.
Exactly. Being like, well, I deserve this, right? Like you don't, you are lovable, and your huge, generous spirit chose someone who recognized that huge, generous spirit and appreciated that huge, generous spirit and wasn't able to then provide anything back into that. Not that it always has to be 50-50, but you know what we're trying to say.
Because you can fit into a stereotype that fits into their tokenization or their fetish, but they can also appreciate the things that make you part of that group that they appreciate so much without just appreciating that you are a part of that group.
Because the difference between like tokenization or fetishization and just like sheer appreciation is like the introvert who appreciates dating an extrovert because it means they don't have to carry the conversation at the party.
Casey,
right?
Are you listening? Where is he?
The person that's always felt a little short in society dating someone who's a little tall and like feeling just safer in public around those people.
Everyone Grant has ever dated. Sorry, you're going to look at me. You're going to tell me that I'm wrong.
No, you're wrong because I'm not going to look at you.
Fair enough.
So anyway, it's perfect. It took us 100 episodes and I'm finally actually speechless.
I feel really good about
that. Back to rom-coms. So rom-coms see this huge, like, kind of peak in the 80s and 90s as we get
That's fair,
what
though.
we find out we didn't need, but we actually do need. We didn't know it at the time, but there's actually a couple of like really important ingredients to make rom-coms successful. They are tropes. So the story is predictable, which means we have to really enjoy watching the person have that revelation.
Right.
And so you actually need a really charismatic lead. And the issue is Channing Tatum, but Amanda Bynes,
also
Julia Roberts, Sandra Bullock, Richard Gere in Pretty Woman.
Oh.
You need actually a really charismatic lead. And having a charismatic lead is actually more important than having chemistry between the two main love interests.
Yeah.
Because there are some really solid movies out there where the romantic chemistry between the two is like pretty weak sauce. It's pretty mild.
Give me an example.
Okay. Like, truthfully, if I'm being honest, I love My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Yeah.
And I believe they're in love. Sure.
Isn't that the actual couple?
No. Oh, maybe it is. Wait, is it? No, there's no way.
I think the woman is the actual woman.
That wrote the story?
Yeah.
But that's not her actual husband. I thought that's the question that you were asking. Aiden from Sex and the City?
Yeah, I mean, probably not, but now I need to know. This is her actual fucking husband.
Yeah. Wait, hold on.
It is her.
No, do you not recognize him? That's the ugly best friend in My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
That's her actual fucking, and that's Ian.
No. Okay, so that's her.
Yes.
And then her actual Ian
Yes.
plays Ian's best friend.
Yeah. I want to know how that conversation went down with the casting directors.
Hold on. Let's chime them back in with an actual, like what we're actually saying. Okay, so we paused for a second, did some research. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, there is like relatively weak sauce chemistry between her and
the guy that plays Ian
Miller.
Yes.
And you were like, wait, that's not true. Isn't her husband in it? And then what did you find?
I found out that her husband is in the movie for sure. Does not play Ian though. Plays Ian's best friend.
Kind of like fuddy-duddy best friend, to be completely honest, who can't be the best man at her husband's wedding.
The headline of this Nia Verdalos, the woman, husband Ian Gomez responds to divorce filing.
Well, we're back to
you
my
heard it here first in 2018.
Years ago. Okay. I am just skipping through things, including okay, no, here we go. So we love rom-coms. They speak to our desire to feel desired. They speak to all of our, insecurities. This is not to say that this universally protects the rom-com from becoming a sometimes tired and unlikable trope of itself. In the early 2000s, rom-com fatigue did seem to hit audiences. Yes. While the beginning of this era saw commercial gems and absolute beloved comedies like How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days,
Yep.
which came out in
An
2003, and 13 Going on 30, which came out in 2004.
That's probably
Yeah,
one
I
of my
know.
favorites. Mark Ruffalo kills me.
We are speaking to the generation directly between our two ages
Yes.
in this
yeah,
episode.
yeah.
The later years of this decade and early into like the 2010s did see some like pretty wild flops. Occasionally you would see some successes,
Yeah.
but the genre as a whole was down. And so, for instance, the reason why so many people love 2011 Crazy Stupid Love is that all the other rom-coms at the time kind of
Didn't
stunk
do
a
well,
little.
yeah.
It's easy to hypothesize why audiences grew tired of the romantic comedy. It's entirely based on tropes.
Yeah.
But also its inability to adapt to like a changing base of viewers also really hurt it, right?
Right.
Like white, heterosexual.
Yeah.
If you're for the girl blonde, right? When was the last time there was a brunette? I mean, Julia Roberts in the 90s was the last time there was a brunette.
Sandra Bullock.
Sure, okay, but she plays blonde in like half of her movies.
The Proposal, she's brunette.
Sure, when she plays an older, more established lady. What about?
She's like a editor.
Sure. What about Pretty Woman?
No, that's fair.
Yeah, and so it's like, or like, what's that lawyer one that she does? You know what I'm talking about? She's blonde in that one too.
She is. I can't remember the name of it. I can picture her though.
And so rom-coms become kind of a victim of the tropes that had made them successful. Because their stories were relatively predictable, you needed a charismatic lead. But because their stories were predictable, people stopped viewing them as serious art and instead just started making fucking Marvel movies.
Which somehow is better.
It's so much worse. But what it did create was this perception amongst serious actresses specifically that a romantic comedy lead role character wasn't a thing serious actors did. And so they stopped doing them. And so rom-coms lacked charismatic leads that they had in the 90s, like Sandra Bullock and Julia Roberts, Kate Hudson.
I think they just started incorporating them into other movies. Right?
Correct. And oftentimes rom-coms were actually launching points for serious
Bigger
actresses
movies,
to
yeah.
get into bigger things
Yeah.
because they had a commercial success and could bring that audience with them. But when the story started to feel similar, when the actresses became less charismatic, the whole genre kind of became a little dry and stale. And it took some experimentation for us to finally kind of fall back in love with romantic comedies.
I'm so excited about this.
The shift was perhaps most apparent in the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Where when the comedy, romantic comedy specifically, had kind of started to dry up, a change in who you casts, the stories that you told,
Yeah.
and the way you structured it helped bring life back into these movies. So for instance, the movie, based off the best-selling novel, but that always helps, Crazy Rich Asians,
Yes.
introduced a whole host of serious actors back into the genre of romantic comedies. And the really sad thing is that these were serious actors who, because of racism, were not being given the roles that they deserved, and then in a story specific about their identities, or like at least in a way where like their
It's
identities
called
weren't a
Crazy
hindrance.
Rich Asians.
Right? Where like they could, like the fact that they were an Asian actor wasn't newsworthy. Like it was just this interesting world, and it was new.
But it was also still like newsworthy that the entire cast was actually Asian.
Correct.
Which is so sad.
But then it does this thing too that was almost kind of hard to do at the time, which is that it took viewers to a place, Singapore, where they don't normally see a story set, but it didn't feel tokenizing because it was, I mean, who lives in Singapore? But like Singaporeans who speak Chinese, and they do end up immigrating to the US and elsewhere, and they have these really interesting connections.
Yes.
And so it wasn't a tokenizing experience. It wasn't a British person in Morocco, aka Casablanca.
But it's also like you're not going to a different non-Eurocentric country and then only focusing on rich people when
Right.
it feels like you should be focusing on middle class because it's called Crazy Rich Asians.
Right.
Right. Like you're already setting that precedent.
And so you have Crazy Rich Asians, which is an adult rom-com. You have To All the Boys I Loved Before, which
Oh
is
my God, I love that one too.
which is a teenage-based rom-com, but features a really diverse cast. And then
Jordan Fisher's in, I think, the second movie.
Yes.
And then he played Orpheus in Hadestown. He just went off.
I'm aware that we have
God.
managed to keep about 8 listeners to this part of the
That's
story,
okay.
but that's okay. We're having a good time.
We make
They're
the
with
podcast
us.
for us. Look
we
at me.
really do.
Especially after today. We make this podcast for us.
We
Sorry.
really do.
I'm trying to get ads on this podcast, and it's a lot harder than you think.
We are going to get tattoos that say long-time listener
First
at some
time caller.
point.
Do we get them separately?
I want long-time listener. You can have first-time caller if you would like. I kind of like as well. Anyways, that's not what we're talking
We'll
about.
figure it out.
So sorry.
Sorry.
So there's Crazy Rich Asians. There's To All the Boys I Loved Before, and then there's Love, Simon, which is specifically queer and also biracial. In the movie, at least, he ends up with a guy whose screen name is Blue. I don't know if you know this
Right,
or
yeah,
not.
yeah.
They like meet on like an online forum at first, and his name online being Blue stands for Black and Jewish because he's biracial,
Gotcha.
and I think the white half of his like biracial family is Jewish, and so
That's
it's
a
like
wild combo.
yeah, I know. So it's diverse, it's queer. What you're seeing in all of these is the rom-com genre stalled in like George W. Bush's America
It did.
in
Like
2005.
when we were still below 18-ish.
Correct. And then it finally, and like it kept repeating that with this diminishing results, especially when you're competing with Hallmark, which will always have a death grip.
Non-union actors.
Correct. They can churn them out because they're basically free for Hallmark to produce.
True.
And so they updated who gets to have the story. What does the romantic lead get to look like, right? Like, I would even argue even the movie Pitch Perfect pushes the boundary because the character like Fat Amy gets to talk about her size.
Yeah.
And then you have movies from the at times controversial comedian Amy Schumer, like Trainwreck,
Yeah.
where she's like, you could date a Laker girl. Why are you talking to me? Right?
Yeah.
And you also have, with a lot of these newer romances, a recognition of like the hellscape that online dating is.
Right.
But with the same kind of tongue-in-cheek relatability that we expect out of a rom-com, right?
Well, I do think too, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I do think too that now we've started incorporating the romantic comedy aspect. Instead of just making a movie just romantic comedy, we've
Right.
incorporated that into other movies like what we've talked about earlier today, Devil Wears Prada. Like that has its moments as
Exactly.
well, but it's absolutely more focused on that woman's career, Anne Hathaway's career. Like The Intern is not. It does have its romantic comedy moments for
Right.
sure. Also, Anne Hathaway. Love her to death. Love her to death. And then that new one with Anne Hathaway,
Right.
the Thought About You or
Les
something.
Mis. Which is a romantic comedy.
Don't tell Victor Hugo.
Or Maddie.
Yeah, or Maddie. What the new one with Anne Hathaway that Hayden really loves?
Oh.
It's something about you.
And is it something about you? The idea of you.
The idea of you.
Oh, like the idea of you. I knew it all along.
You got it.
I knew it all along. It didn't take us 5 minutes to get to that answer.
Or like Enchanted.
Yes.
Or, yeah. Cinderella story. And then when Disney got real self-aware and called the one with Selena Gomez another Cinderella story.
Yes.
Which, by the way, I still love both of those movies. One with Hilary Duff, the other with Selena Gomez.
Obviously. I mean, I'm the generation of Hilary Duff, but respect to both.
I mean, I like both of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like it was this recognition of like romance as
Yes.
a part of this person's life.
And not the
and
defining
trying to
factor.
find a way
Yeah.
to fit into it. Whereas like earlier rom-coms would have showed a career as an obstacle to this person's success,
Yes.
which is really interesting because it
Yes.
does trace its roots back.
phone.
I can see that.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting because it does trace its roots back to some of the earliest parts about rom-coms that we really liked, which is women navigating systems they don't have any control over. The fact that like rom-coms showed women whose career was an obstacle like fits into that tradition.
Right,
And
yeah.
so rom-coms in many ways saves themselves, not because they stop producing movies about like heterosexual, white, cisgendered people, but because they also now are starting to include other people, right?
Right, yeah.
Like, for instance, in the movie The Devil Wears Prada, she has her boyfriend, and then she has 2 friends,
Yes.
right? A black woman, and how would you describe the other person?
Definitely a gay man.
Right.
Or metrosexual.
Right.
Yeah.
At no point in
Does
the
he
movie
identify as
at no point in the movie does anyone in The Devil Wears Prada like admit or acknowledge or even mention boyfriends being gay, any of that stuff. I was going to say any of that nonsense, but obviously I don't think it's nonsense.
You're nonsense.
I mean, sometimes I think it's nonsense. And like today, you might have like a gay character who like comes over because they just broke up with their boyfriend, right?
Yes.
And there are still times where they get typecast and they get pigeonholed,
100%.
but not always. And it almost feels like at times when they are typecasts, it's like a tongue-in-cheek joke they're doing, as opposed to like, this is what gay people are, you know? It almost feels like they'll be typecast and they'll be like, don't think of me as like the messy queer, right? As like this like acknowledgement that like I am experiencing this.
And a lot of times
and
now
I'm more than this.
They're at least casting the same identity of people
Correct.
in who their character identifies as, especially when it comes to minority identities.
If it's a gay person, it's usually at least a gay person playing a gay person. And all of that is to say people of color, queer people have been able to see themselves in romances, which is funny because they oftentimes deeply identified with rom-coms, even if they weren't being portrayed. This perception of like love being impossible, being an outsider, society being a confusing, bedeviling thing that they can't navigate is certainly things those who feel like they grew up on the outskirts of society can relate to. And then what you've seen, especially recently, which goes back to a Shakespearean tradition, but updates it. Shakespearean tradition was 2 lovers who love each other deeply but just can't be together. And it's oftentimes because of class or one of them's about to go to war. Which kind of draws like an ancient Greek reference to.
Yes.
Like that they deserve more times trope, right? And so there's like this modern version of it where it's, and they're oftentimes so like lighthearted and wonderful. And I truly do think, not to be like all red, white, and blue here, a product of American culture where it's like 2 totally different cultures are coming together.
Yeah.
And there's obviously going to be some clash around that, but like that's still really interesting.
That's part of what makes it a rom-com, especially in what we're seeing now. There's like a new-ish, it came out like several years ago. Mindy Kaling did a Netflix series. It's like a rom-com of an Indian girl who's a daughter of Indian immigrants in like American high school.
Isn't it called Never Have I Ever?
I think so. Yeah. I get lost in like the names because they always choose like, I don't know, things that all of us recognize.
So there is movies like The Big Sick, Bend It Like Beckham, and The 100-Foot Journey, which represents people from like predominantly Western cultures and another person from a predominantly like Asian or South Asian culture falling in love and blending those families together. There's movies like Love Actually, which actually just look a lot like The Merchant of Venice with multiple love lines kind of intertwining with each other. You even have diversity for white people in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which one of the last lines Aunt Tula, aka the star of that
incredible.
movie, says.
Yes.
It actually is the last line, I think, spoken by someone who's not the main character in that movie. She looks at her husband, and it's not Aunt Tula. I'm just realizing Tula is the name of the main character. But it's the
I know,
aunt.
it's not the mom.
Right,
yeah, it's the other.
aunt.
She has like bigger hair.
Right.
Yeah.
And she looks at her husband, and she goes, "Oh, Poppy, he looks Greek." And it's just this moment where they've like come together.
Yeah.
And not to be all like red, white, and blue, but it's just like, I think this beautiful moment where like, at least in modern America, there isn't any allowance for a character who starts off racist and ends racist.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Like American audiences expect your character to have
grow.
grown and not only be okay with it, but to kind of celebrate it a little bit. And that's been true for kind of the last 20 years. Now, granted, American reality does not match American fiction. I recognize I'm a white man saying that. I want to clock that right now. That I'm like, and in the movies, everything's good. Just like in real life. Not what I'm saying. Not what I'm saying at all. I have dated people of color. I love people of color. There are people of color in my life. I am deeply aware of the fact.
He runs a small business with me. I just want to make that clear.
I also taught on the southwest side of Denver for a decade.
You really did. You got pretty good at Spanish.
Like I'm aware that that's not like a lived reality. But I think it
one
says a
time
lot.
described a like traditional Mexican dish, and you were like, "Oh yeah,
oh yeah, this."
Yeah, and I was like,
Yeah. But
I'm
it's
just
like,
Japanese. That's what's happening.
and what I'm just trying to say
Yeah.
is that this expectation that like two cultures coming together being a beautiful thing that is ultimately celebrated is kind of an American tradition and not one that you're going to see elsewhere, which is really exciting because in a genre whose tropes are at least 600 years old, to be able to update it in a way like this, I think is really exciting, which gets me to part 4 and the final part. So rom-coms, do we still need them? Did they ever actually matter, right? I'm going to read through this chunk and then we are going to talk about the rom-com that inspired me to do this episode.
Okay, before we get into that, I promised it would be a recurring theme and then I didn't do it at all. What is another favorite rom-com of yours?
So thank you for this question.
You're welcome.
Because when men I go on dates with ask me what my top 3 favorite movies are, not all of them.
Yeah.
No, not all of them. The ones that get to second dates do, though.
Yeah, there it is.
And the tough thing is, my 2 favorite movies are very different from each other, but have the word wedding in both of them,
Big Fat
which
Greek
is
Wedding.
and My Best Friend's Wedding,
Oh,
which is not a chill thing you want to say to someone on a first date.
Yeah.
But My Best Friend's Wedding is so incredible for 100 different reasons. I think it really speaks to me because at the end of that movie, and I think is it Sandra Bullock or Julia Roberts?
I have no idea. It's been a really long time since I've seen that movie. I think I've seen it
Julia
once.
Roberts. I'm pretty sure it's Julia Roberts.
Yeah.
What I love about that movie is Julia Roberts realizes pretty early on that she's in love with her best friend and realizes it basically the second after she finds out her best friend's married to some like hot 22-year-old who's wealthy as hell. Like inheritance money.
Yeah.
And then spends the entire movie trying to break them up, right? And has a gay best friend that's not a token, which is really interesting.
Love that.
And the movie ends with her failing. She doesn't stop her best friend from marrying Cameron Diaz. Julia Roberts fails. And she's alone at this wedding watching her best friend dance. And she is reminded that she's happy for her best friend and that she loves him. And that means she needs to be happy for him. And then she gets a call from gay best friend George. And he's like, let me guess, you're sitting at the table at the edge of the dance floor, drumming your fingers against the table. And of course she is.
She actually is.
And she's like, and he's like, and you're wondering if anyone's going to ever notice you in that lavender horrendous dress that you're wearing because the bridesmaid you put in there. And then Julia Roberts goes, George, I never told you my dress was lavender. And she's like starting to look around the room and she like kind of gets up and she starts searching and she finds on the dance floor George in a brick of a cell phone who's been staring at her and flew in to support her, never really left. And she's there surrounded by love and she's surrounded by her friend and like
That's
her best
really
gay friend
sweet.
and the friend who she loves so deeply she almost ruined his marriage
wedding for, yeah.
But she's happy for him. And that's such a beautiful, beautiful story. I love that
That's
story.
really cute. I don't remember any of that.
Because we all saw it when we were 8
Yeah,
with our
I was
moms
going to say, I think I
once.
saw it once and then never again.
You need to rewatch My Best Friend's Wedding. Not
Okay.
just because there's no cell phones in
Yeah.
it, but because it's a legitimately incredible
Okay,
movie.
so you said My Best Friend's Wedding.
And My Big Fat Greek Wedding.
Okay, third one, because I missed one.
Honestly, Anyone But You, just because I'm kind of obsessed over its deep correlation to Much Ado About Nothing.
That's fair enough.
Oh, what about you? What's your top
So
3?
I said The Proposal earlier. Also, I'm not saying these in any order. It's my ADHD brain. I have no idea what's going on. The next 50 First Dates.
Okay.
Do you know that one?
Yeah, with Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler.
Incredible.
For some weird reason, it was like one of the approved movies my brother and I was
also
able to
just
watch
like
as a
so
kid.
problematic if it were released today, but so funny.
Yeah.
The fact that she has memory loss and then still remembers Adam Sandler, but only paints him as an egg because of his head.
I also think it was maybe the last movie Drew Barrymore ever made.
I think so. But it was just like so sweet because
Yeah.
there's that moment at the end where they're on the like tour, the a boat tour through Alaska or something.
Right.
And he knows she's going to forget everything in the morning. And so the premise of the movie, if you haven't seen it, is that she got into a really bad car accident, Drew Barrymore's character. And so now she has long-term memory loss. So she only remembers what happens during that day.
Right.
And so she only remembers up until like she's like, I don't know, like 20 or something like that. And so she's met Adam Sandler's character every day and he falls in love with her and he has to reconvince her every day that he's in love with her.
Right.
Oh my God. And then the last scene of the movie, they're like on this Alaskan boat cruise or something, and you see her wake up and she sees this VCR tape and it says like play me or something. She's like panicking because she doesn't know how she got there.
But she wakes up in a room that's not hers.
Yes, yeah. And so she plays the VCR tape and it's Adam Sandler's character with her whole family like explaining what happened, how she lost her memory, how they got married. And
she's on a boat.
She's on a boat and she goes up to meet her husband and I think maybe her kids. I can't totally remember.
Who's Adam Sandler, and they're sailing to Antarctica to see walruses or
something
the
like
Arctic to see walruses.
There was some dream of hers, but that one is really gets me every time.
Because it's like Adam Sandler's character loves her because of who he feels like he is around her.
Yes.
And like what fundamentally makes her tick.
Yeah.
Not because of like who he is in her eyes.
Not how she treats him.
Yeah.
And that's just fuck me. I need to watch that movie again.
I actually think we are going to inspire a weekend long of movie watching amongst our listeners who are still with us, and thank you.
Thank you.
I apologize for the lack of a thread, but it's kind of been more of like a, hey, like
it's like a sociology
it really
episode. I like
it's very different from like, and then when she was 52, she hated men.
Yes.
Which I've done
100%.
a lot of, and a lot of them are very truthful, and those are good stories to share.
They are.
But this was just a fun one to do differently.
You need to mix it up every once in a
So
while.
what's your third one?
My third one, for a second I was gonna say Get Smart, but I think that's just my favorite like comedy movie.
And another Anne Hathaway movie.
And another Anne Hathaway. And Michael Scott.
Yes.
Yeah,
also
exactly.
Steve Carell to us humans.
I mean Steve Carell to the rest of you, but whatever. I think my actual answer is 13 going on 30.
I've only seen that like twice.
It's
but
so good.
And I know part of this is because I teach at a high school, but I feel that way all the time where I'm like, I'm feeling deeply relatable to these people. Not because I haven't aged in my brain. Like I'm well aware of the fact that I'm turning 32. I'm excited for it. Like I'm not in denial.
I feel like
but at
you
the same time,
really
it's so
represent
relatable.
her. Like,
thank you.
What's her name? Jennifer. Is it Jennifer Garner?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's Jennifer Garner.
Who plays the mom in Love, Simon, a movie I mentioned earlier.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
She says, you get to be more you than you've been in a really long time, Simon. And when she said that, I like burst into tears.
Yeah.
Because he just came out
There's
to
a
her.
few characters that like really represent as moms to me. Jennifer Garner is definitely one of them.
I wish Jennifer Garner had been born in Lincoln, Nebraska, but instead we got Hillary Swank, which is fine.
I mean, close enough. Let us know in the comments, who is your maternal actress figure? Because I think mine might be Jennifer Garner or Jenna Fisher.
I don't
honestly.
think you're prepared for some of them to say Anne Hathaway. I don't think you're ready for that.
Oh, I mean, she is Mother,
No, she is Princess Diaries.
which they're making another one of.
Good. Anyways, continue.
And Devil Wears Prada. No, 13 going on 30. Mark Ruffalo slays immediately. And also, like, just the glow up and the way that she, like, is able to imbue childhood into this, like, crazy, I don't know, corporate life that she's built for herself. That is obviously her dream career, but then she wakes up one day and is like, why am I not having fun anymore?
Doesn't that movie kind of freak you out, though? Because it's like, wait, how can one life have contained so many powerful dreams?
Why do you think I have depression and anxiety?
Gotcha. Okay.
Here's a funny story.
Earlier today, I was talking to Maia and I go, hey, I just want you to know, I'm sorry that even in the bad news, I immediately find myself standing in the light of a silver lining.
It's insane. I don't use that word lightly. It's diabolical in nature, actually.
My last boyfriend broke up with me because he was having like a horrific day, and he's like, and I just went to fucking Starbucks and I got one of their fucking gross sandwiches, and it was a cold day, so I go, hey, you got a warm sandwich? And he goes, not the fucking point, Grant. And I go,
you
you're
can talk
so
to Casey
right
about this
about
because
that.
you and Casey are on the same page.
I'm like, no, I'm growing as a person. Thank you so much. You are so right. We were talking about big issues, and a tomato mozzarella sandwich is not going to solve any of them.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's not. 13 going on 30. I think it's just a reminder to like be find joy in your stupid little adult life that you dreamed of, but still remember like who you were coming into it. And that's just really sweet. We should watch it together. It'll be really cute.
I'm down. You know I love finding joy in the world. So
also Mark Ruffalo. Mark Ruffalo is that man. Him and Paul Rudd have aged so well.
Do you know who
Clueless? Sorry. Clueless.
A movie I cut out from my notes because I was like, I'm getting too far off track. Little did I know.
Sorry, Clueless. If you haven't seen it, watch it. That's all I'm going to say about it. It's obviously like from the 90s or whatever, so it's problematic in its own ways. But oh my God. Paul Rudd.
So do rom-coms still matter? Did they ever? And this comes from an article from Vox. Third in episode citation. Ha. On guard. Some of the most beloved films of all time are rom-coms, but the label is often used as a shorthand for unimportant, fluffy, and inconsequential. There are a few reasons for that, one of which is that rom-coms are seen as geared towards a female audience, and films for women have often been considered less important or less substantial than prestige films.
Just like gossip.
Correct.
Yeah.
Couple that with the lasting sense in some quarters that comedies just aren't as worthy of consideration as dramas, and you end up with rom-coms being sidelined. At their very best, romantic comedies are joy. They are about forging human connections and people changing each other for the better, all of which is complex stuff that is worthy of sustained aesthetic attention. But they approach their subject matter with glee instead of tragedy, drama, or trauma. I think another significant factor in the denigration of the rom-com is that they are built so heavily on tropes. Their predictability is a huge part of their appeal. We know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
I want to know how it's going to happen. It is for every single one of us who has stayed up till 2 a.m. because the travelers just got to the inn, but there's 2 beds.
And you're like, what the
And you're furious.
Yeah.
Like that right there is you're like, I do know these 2 characters at one point will kiss, but how will it happen? How will they react when it happens? How does that impact their relationship?
I want to know what you're feeling when
What's
that
their
happens.
feeling? What's their communication styles? So one of the issues with rom-coms, as we were just covering, is that it's a trope-based style of things.
Yeah.
But it's not the only trope-based style of things. I mean, basically everything draws itself from tropes. My favorite thing to joke about when it comes to students is like, Marvel, I bet, no way, they're not going to win this time. Wait, they did. Oh, okay, the heroes still won in the end.
And then if it's like the big finale, one of them will die.
Right, exactly. Wait, the good guys didn't win this time because they're making a sequel. And the sequel is actually just an extension of the first movie. Like, they're all trope-based stuff. But what we saw really interestingly is that at the same time that rom-com grew stale, other subgenres of culture, like geek culture, for instance, stepped into its trope-based like formula and really flourished because of that. And then horror movies like Scream, for example, were reinvented by things that acknowledged their tropes and then built off of it and helped reignite the genre as things that are able to say something about the human experience, but at the same time still hit on the core principles that we really like. Like when we're talking about horror, for example, Jordan Peele's movies like Get Out, for example, which is able to speak powerfully towards like the experience of people of color and racism in this country, while at the same time still hitting traditional tropes around like horror and like don't go into the woods and like don't trust strangers and a person that you trust will betray you.
Yeah.
Still managed to make effective movies.
Yeah.
And so we talk a little bit about how by embracing some of these tropes, but then allowing themselves to put a twist on it without denying who their like core identity is.
And how that identity affects the storytelling.
Correct.
Yeah.
Has helped these things thrive because like it is a rom-com based thing. And it is, not a rom-com. Obviously, it's a rom-com based thing. That sentence doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry. It is a trope based thing, rom-coms. But they have launched careers of serious actors and actresses.
Yes.
Sandra Bullock has an Oscar.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant. Like, it doesn't
they're
even
all
necessarily have to
big,
be.
yeah.
Like Hugh Grant, love him to death. What has he done outside of Bridget Jones' Diary?
I'm not actually sure.
Correct, because he didn't need to, because Bridget Jones' Diary is a masterpiece. And that gets us to the final piece, which is like, what happened to rom-coms and how are they coming back? So rom-coms used to be really successful because of two things. First, even if they only did okay at the box office, you could always count on selling a boatload of DVDs at Thanksgiving and Christmas.
True, yeah.
They were movies that were easy to get people like to have, etc.
Yeah, what was the movie that you watched over Christmas? Was it about Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce? Oh, no, it was based off of characters based on them.
Right.
Okay, yeah.
And I watched it as it premiered with my parents over Christmas.
Yeah.
And so you could count on people, like, for instance, while you were sleeping, everyone rented and everyone bought, right? And then you had. And then even if you didn't rent it or buy it, like, you could turn on TNT, for example, and every single person in America who was like alive, conscious, and in this country in the year 2010 had this experience where at one point or another you accidentally ended up on TNT and they're playing Forrest Gump, right? And you're going to end up watching it. Rom-coms were perfect for that. Because it's so trope heavy, you didn't need to see the first 30 minutes to understand the rising action. You're able to jump into it whenever. And especially if you'd already seen the movie, like you were watching the charismatic actors and actresses on screen. Like, what's that Mel Gibson movie? I think Like a Woman.
You're
right?
asking the wrong person about Mel Gibson.
Good and good. But like, it's like all of these movies allowed people who were just tuning in because they caught it on cable as they were flipping channels to jump into it right away. Movies that you would buy right away. And all of these are streams of income for these movies that once streaming comes around, stop existing. And so that really craters the rom-com industry for a while until they readapt.
Yeah.
And now suddenly these rom-coms are based more so than you saw in the past on books that are getting published.
Yeah.
Right? So Crazy Rich Asians and I believe To All the Boys I Loved Before.
I think so, yeah.
Both have literary followings that helped push people to the theaters and helped give them like a base to go off of.
Yeah.
They also strive to be a little bit more affordable when it comes to their production. But what I think is really interesting in all of this is geek culture embraced its tropes.
Yeah.
And in doing so, allowed fan fiction to become a thing, which is A, very geek based, and B, very trope based. And when fan fiction was allowed to flourish in online spaces as like geek culture became more mainstream, it increased the pool of readers who would buy these kind of rom-com books and who would also recommend these rom-com books to others. Like online forums now existed to recommend these books. And so then these books are being recommended to people that were otherwise not connected. And because they were now commercial successes as books, they could then be brought back to the silver screen as movies where there is a certain degree of like expected, almost guaranteed success in them.
Yeah.
And so like rom-coms were in many ways saved by the thing that initially sank them.
Yeah.
And also the thing that will always save rom-coms is the thing that has kept rom-coms around forever, which is even if you hit like a dry spell or you have a couple years where they're bad, and in the years that they're bad, the good ones stand out. Like The Proposal.
Yes.
The Proposal is great.
Yeah.
Everyone remembers The Proposal. It stars Julia Roberts. It stars Ryan. Is it Sandra Bullock?
Sandra Bullock.
Sandra Bullock. It stars Ryan Reynolds. It stars Betty White as the grandma. And it stands out because a lot of other movies around that time were bad. But then like there's 2015's Think Like a Man, right? Like the good ones stand out. But they will never die as a genre because the thing that has always made them appealing is how relatable they are.
I do think too sometimes rom-coms historically fall flat. Like if like one of your students right now were to watch The Proposal for the first time, would be like, holy shit, this is so offensive to Native Americans.
Yes.
Or indigenous people, because it is.
Right.
But at the time that it was released, it didn't have that same impact as we're like currently socially aware, you know?
Right.
And so watching these kinds of older rom-coms watching Friends, the sitcom now, doesn't necessarily feel the same as it did back when it was initially released. So now we're looking for, I think, more things that are more relatable.
And I'm so grateful that you said that, because the last final chapter that ties it kind of all together is that because of the way that rom-coms are situated, every now and then you get one that's able to kind of constantly reproduce sequels.
Yes.
Sex and the City being one example. Bridget Jones' Diary being the other one. So Maia asked me when I was doing my travels to Seattle and Phoenix for a theme. And while I wasn't going through like a crisis or anything, I had been really deep into work for like 4 or 5 months. And it was a weekend away from work before I returned to be again really back into deep work. It was like you're diving, you come up for air, but you're immediately going back down for treasure. And you were asking me, hey, like, what's your theme?
Please,
I would love to know what I can start researching. And I too would love to know what I could start researching.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough.
And around that time, 2 really important things happened to me. First, a person I care about deeply got married in a beautiful wedding that I was really grateful to watch. And basically the day I got back from that wedding, I watched the 4th installment of Bridget Jones' Diary, Mad About the Girl, or Mad About the Boy.
I haven't seen that one.
It's very good.
Okay.
It's very real. It's very raw. And it's this wonderful thing where, like, because to fall in love is so vulnerable, if you believe the character has fallen in love, you can kind of follow them through anything, which is like why Bridget Jones' Diary is a rom-com even in its serious moments. It's why Fleabag is a rom-com. Yeah. Because that character is so real, and the actress who plays that character is so charismatic.
So good.
Is so good.
Both of them are so good.
Right, that you will actually walk through with them through like the unbelievable parts because you want to believe it. Yeah. So in Bridget Jones 4, Mad About the Boy, at one point Bridget Jones climbs a tree to get something for one of her children, and a hot man arrives to help rescue her from a tree she has climbed into but can't climb out of, because every Coloradan knows the golden rule of scrambling. Going up
easier than going down.
Exactly.
Way easier. If you haven't learned it yet, if you take nothing else away from this rom-com episode, that is what you should take down for safety's sake.
Every Coloradan has one moment where you go, am I about to die in the state park?
Yeah.
It's because
you went up and you're like, oh my God, there's no footholds.
Right, exactly. Okay, it makes sense now that I'm up here, but wow. Yeah.
Yep.
And so I watched that movie, and it was just kind of striking at like how this character has like developed over time. And so the very last thing that I'm going to talk about is like Bridget Jones is like this epitome of tropes, and the rom-com field is just filled with stories that we've heard for hundreds of years. But also Bridget Jones is this adaptation of Jane Austen's work, which is in many ways a rejection of some of these tropes. Yeah. Right?
Big time.
Like Jane Austen would never write.
The Bronte sisters.
Right.
Yeah.
Would never write The Taming of the Shrew.
No. Oh my God. No.
But yet they both still fit in this genre. So last chapter, it's like 3 paragraphs.
Oh, you're good.
No, it's even less than that. The movie Bridget Jones' Diary, which the first of the 4 movies came out in 2001, was inspired by Jane Austen's novel Pride and Prejudice. Yeah. Bridget Jones is Elizabeth Bennet. Both are intelligent, independent women navigating love, social pressure, and self-doubt. Mark Darcy is Mr. Darcy, both literally and unironically. That's the top love interest, but also hard to read. Also, they're both played by Colin Farrell. I'm sorry, Colin Firth.
Wait, oh my God, I never put that together.
Like at different moments, both are played by Colin Firth.
Yeah.
And also they share the name Mr. Darcy in the most obvious, but he's initially cold and distant, but later proves to be kind, honorable, and deeply thoughtful. And then there's the chauvinist, the hot one, Daniel Cleaver, a.k.a. George Wickham, a.k.a. Hugh Grant, who's the other romantic interest, who seems to possess everything you want. Clear and obvious wealth, clear and obvious confidence, clear and obvious interest in you. Yeah. But as we realize, that is fleeting, and like there is much more depth to it all. Additionally, Bridget Jones' diary, Helen Fielding, was heavily inspired by the 1995 British adaptation of Pride and Prejudice, in which Colin Firth plays Miss Darcy, making it even more fitting that he was later cast as Mr. Darcy in the movies. So what I'm trying to say is, if you take anything away, as the person who wrote this episode, if you take anything away from today's episode, please do not call them chick flicks. Please embrace the fact that it is a feminine-driven genre. And please embrace the fact that loving people, wanting to be loved, experiencing love, and then experiencing anxiety around that is deeply human. So funny. And
it's not
an award-winning genre.
Yeah, it's not only a feminine experience,
Yes.
right? Like experiencing love, experiencing vulnerability does not make you less of whatever gender identity that you are, right? That is the second any man ever is like, well, performing singing is like super like, I don't know, like not masculine.
Sure, it's super feminine.
I'll kill you right now.
Well, it's funny because like it's almost like in celebrating like a feminine perspective on romance, which is defined by obstacles that women oftentimes don't have the ability to remove. By celebrating that, you've excluded men, which isn't true. Men are never excluded, but if it's not specifically stating men will feel excluded.
Men will exclude themselves.
Correct. Because
Truly.
I have looked at many a 16 and 17-year-old male students and go, what you just did was petty. What you just did was honestly kind of mean. And trying to control this person's reaction is actually emotional manipulation. And you need to work through some of that. I've looked at some men in my classes as they like talk about their heartbreak, and I'll be like, hey, it's like super normal to have a really powerful emotional reaction on the inside as to what's happening. But the way you channeled that was deeply immature. And makes me feel like you're not actually ready to venture into those emotions if that's how you're going to react at times.
God, I just want to be there when you say that to them. Like, I know exactly which students you're saying that to.
Because it's like, hey, because the way you got to say it is like, hey, man, I want you to know, I get it. Like, man, have I felt these emotions before. But what you did probably isn't who you want to be. And I'm actually not entirely sure you knew how to navigate that. And I think you ended up hurting people that you really care about. You didn't even feel better afterwards. And I think we need to talk about that a little bit more.
You get the straight boys at such a fun time where they're still moldable.
Well, because I talk about March Madness. Like, I am the most confusing shapeshifter of a character. I am the professor of dark arts because I can just.
I love that.
Okay, I'm sorry. I've been cutting you off, but can I share this one story real quick? So I have this male student in my class who they're a freshman. He's a freshman. He's 14, maybe he's 15 years old. He's a total bro. The first story he ever shared in class was a snowboarding story where he cracked his own helmet.
That's classic.
Right.
Classic frat boy.
He's a total bro. His dad emailed me, CCing him on it, asking questions about his grade because it wasn't good. And I responded that like, he has come in to help work on this thing and it's not done yet, but I feel confident that it'll be done.
Yeah.
And then in the fourth quarter, we do more assignments that are like more adept to his strengths. And I feel confident about him being able to get a kind of grade in his class. I think I might have been the first teacher to say something nice about him to his parents. Because 48 hours later, he asked me to fill out his recommendation form for student council. And my reaction was, am I your trusted
After what I've said?
I've always been like really nice to him, but part of me is like, surely there's a male science teacher, right?
Yeah.
Like, surely you have a
math teacher, history teacher,
sport coach, right?
Sport coach.
And instead, like my class, which you just kind of begrudgingly come to, is like a place where you feel supported and challenged. Is where you like it's like when all my gay students start singing Wicked, I'm like, have I created too supportive of an environment?
My response now, and to be fair, I don't like I talk to Grant's straight students sometimes.
Good, thank you, because they are a huge portion of my program.
And to be fair, there's only been like a couple of them where I've been like, you have some maturing to do.
Yeah.
And the rest of them, I've now learned, the rest of them, some of them are masking, and the rest of them have learned their toxic, power. But now, whenever I encounter that, I've actually had conversations with Casey where he's like, this is what he said to me. He's like, do you think talking to them like that is going to change their opinion? And my answer was, I don't fucking care.
Yeah.
Because at a certain point, you're like, how have you not learned?
Well, it's not like I'm trying to change their opinion, because again, that's kind of emotional manipulation.
Oh, yeah.
They're allowed to have
But you
free
have to
thought.
make them think.
I need them to understand, though, that statement will have a range of reactions. And this is an honest one coming from a trusted adult.
Yeah. My first time that I did this, that Casey was like, hey, can you not? Was around the time that like TikTok became like super popular, right? It was maybe right after like the COVID pandemic broke out, maybe right before. I was over at his house, and his roommate, who I now like still love dearly, but his roommate was like, I don't know, I just feel weird about like the like I don't want China stealing my information. And I was like, do you have a banking app on your phone? And he was like, yeah. And I was like, do you log into that on the Wi-Fi? He was like, yeah. I was like, have you ever logged into that on a publicly accessed Wi-Fi? And he was like, yeah. I was like, great, they have all your information.
Yeah. Yes, they do.
And he was like, well, and I was like, no, they have it. The U.S. government has it.
Nothing's private online.
Nothing. If you have entered your information into a online form.
It's why I only have one password. Everyone has it.
Yeah. like, are you, and then as I got older, that patience of asking those kinds of leading questions grew more and more thin. And now there's someone in our general circle who had a comment about men. It was like, we were playing Catch the Vibe, and Catch the Vibe, there's like you're on a graph, there's an X and Y axis, and then there's like a theme, and someone puts a token on those X and Y axis. That didn't make sense to anyone who hasn't played that game. I'm so sorry.
It's all a gradient. You're just trying to figure out what shade it is.
Yeah. And so the topic was like, how big of balls do you think someone who performs a cappella has? And of course, his answer was like,
is this our friend group or your guys' friend group?
Not your friend group. Are you kidding? No, I would eviscerate them if it was our friend group.
Okay.
No, this is someone that I know because of someone else, and then felt like I couldn't be a dick. But they were like, of course it's small balls. Like, who performs a cappella? And I was like, okay, sing. And he was like, well, no. And I was like, so it takes more balls than you have? And he was like, well, that's not the point. I was like, it is the fucking point.
I'm sorry that I didn't create a sheltered space for your toxic masculinity. I just wasn't interested in protecting what's victimized me.
Anyway, challenge men when they say stupid shit. You know? Like, I think singing is such a bullshit. Okay, sing. Act.
I'm obsessed that we have accidentally put together a 3-hour episode.
I love it.
I was concerned legitimately it was going to be 70 minutes long.
Good.
We are at the...
We had a glass of wine.
We are at...
I've had a
bottle of wine
almost
now.
had a bottle of wine, and I had a beer before you came over.
Okay, so hey, I think this has been a really fun episode.
This has been good.
In a lot of ways, it feels kind of like some of those OG episodes where we're just like, hey, I've done minimal research. Let's tee off.
Let's talk.
But it's been fun, and I really enjoyed it. Yeah. And I appreciate the chance to talk about less of a person and more of the concept of like
the concept of a person,
the concept of a plan, the concept of what it looks like to culturally celebrate romantic love, especially as like kind of infamously the more skeptical one of the two of us on that topic of what it means to be happy and excited and joyous about perhaps the oldest stories we have humans have told each other.
Yeah, there's only so many emotions we can write about, right? And love definitely is one of them.
Love Actually is one of them.
Okay.
So to wrap up today's speech,
tell your friends about us, please.
Please tell your friends about us. Like us, rate us, whatever. If you would like to find additional content, you can always find us on Patreon, where we provide an additional episode every week. We are also, sorry, I'm trying to Patreon is not usually how I start off the speech. So
I know. I've noticed your anxiety around the rest of this.
You can find us on social media where we are Well I Laughed Podcast. If you have a story related to the movies and movie magic.
Or identity theft or whatever Grant's next theme is.
Sure, whatever my next theme is. You can write those stories into welilaughedpod@gmail.com. And finally, if you're looking for the perfect gift to give someone, especially as we approach Taurus and Gemini season, you can find us on Cameo. Until then, friends, we'll see you on Patreon, or we'll see you next week.
Okay, goodbye.
Goodbye.